Chapter 455. In the 1980s and 1990s, Hong Kong's film and television entertainment industry was at its peak, and there were countless film companies. An ambitious and capable person in the circle could easily form a team and buy a decent script to attract a large amount of investment. Then, with a cost of $1,000,000 at most, they could spend half a month or a month to make a movie and make a lot of money. However, the golden age of Hong Kong's entertainment industry had passed more than 10 years ago. Today's Hong Kong film and television companies were at most a quarter of their heyday, but the number was still considerable, and those who could survive usually had their own foundation and characteristics. Jiang Film's status in Hong Kong's film and television industry couldn't be compared with the top moguls, but as an old film and television company, its strength and influence were not low, especially after it was acquired by Hong Kong businessman Zhou Yi. In the past 2 years, it had produced several movies with good box office. This was also the reason why Chen Wenxiang strongly advocated the cooperation between Lu Qin Studio and Jiang Film. The team of Jiang Film was ready-made and had rich experience. This film and television company had a good relationship with several major cinema chains so they could quickly screen in Hong Kong and get good ratings. For Lu Qin Studio, which has just started, it will save a lot of trouble to have such a partner. However, the first contact and negotiation did not go well. Jiang Film's offer was very high. It was not an exorbitant price, but it was far beyond Lu Chen's bottom line. Of course, a movie with an investment budget of as high as 30 million yuan could not be easily settled by sitting down for a meal and chatting. There were many rules and regulations involved in cooperation. The so-called negotiation was actually a process of bargaining and testing each other's bottom line. Often, a final agreement could only be reached after a round of gambling. Lu Chen had already expected this, so he began to prepare for the new movie and was also mentally prepared to continue the negotiation with Jiang Film. If they really could not come to an agreement, they could either talk to another company or simply gather their people. Of course, that was the last choice and it would cost a lot more time and money, which was contrary to the plan. To Lu Chen's surprise, he had just visited Jiang Film with Chen Wenxiang and Wan Xiaoquan yesterday and met their general manager, Zhang Yifan. Today, the big boss behind Jiang Film, Zhou Yi, actually paid a return visit in person. Was this also the influence of Lu Gangxing? If that was the case, Lu Chen had undoubtedly underestimated the influence of this superstar in Xiangjiang. Lu Chen remained calm and collected as he said to Li Zhen, "Mr. Zhou, please come to my office and apologize for me." Madame Jean was still sitting here. If he abandoned this group of people in front of him to welcome Zhou Yi, then his EQ would be too low. Even if the latter was definitely here to discuss the cooperation of the new film. "Yes, young Master Lu." Li Zhen nodded in agreement and left to receive Zhou Yi. Mrs. Jean smiled and said, "Young Master Lu, Boss Zhou Yi is here in person. Is he here to discuss the cooperation of the new movie? Then you have to catch him and slaughter him." Young Master Lu was a very unique title in Xiangjiang. Previously, Ma Rongjin mentioned it first, and then Chen Wenxiang also called him Young Master Lu. Now even Li Zhen and Madame Jean changed the way they addressed him. Originally, as a guest, it was impolite to ask about the purpose of another guest's visit. However, Madame Jean was a woman, and her smile was very amiable. Her words revealed her familiarity with Zhou Yi, so people did not feel it was abrupt. Lu Chen was curious. "Madame Jean and Boss Zhou are friends?" Madame Jean smiled and said, "We've had dinner together a few times. Boss Zhou is a very trustworthy person. It's reassuring to cooperate with him. Several of my artists have filmed in Jiang Film before. It's been a pleasure working with him." She looked around and took the opportunity to push her two goddaughters out. "Young Master Lu, do you still need actors for your movie? Give Xiaodai and Xinyan 2 roles. They can also play small roles. You don't need to pay them at all. Just treat it as letting them learn from you. How about it? Filming a movie?" Both Ji Xiaodai and Li Xinyan were tempted. They blinked their eyes and stared at Lu Chen. Filming movies and TV shows were irresistible temptations for most girls in Xiangjiang. There would always be examples in the industry of meeting talent scouts on the street and then becoming famous and embarking on a brilliant career as a star. Although this was Lu Chen's first movie and no one knew how it would turn out, being able to play a role in it would undoubtedly increase one's qualifications. With Lu Chen's fame and reputation, it was impossible for him to shoot a quick movie with tens of millions of investments, right? They were all smart people. Lu Chen smiled and said, "To be honest, I still lack a few roles in this movie. I haven't decided on the female lead either, but there really aren't any suitable ones for Xiaodai and Xinyan. If you don't mind, it's not a problem for you to play a small role." There were not many characters involved in the movie, a Chinese ghost story. Lu Chen played the male lead, Yan Qixia had already decided on Ma Rongzhen, and there was a female supporting role, Xiaoqing, reserved for Chen Wenxiang's daughter. The only thing that Madame Jean could get for her goddaughter was a cameo appearance out of friendship. Before Madame Jean could speak, Li Xinyan couldn't wait and said, "A small role is fine too." Ji Xiaodai also nodded in agreement. They didn't expect to get any important roles, so it was good to play a small role. Just treat it as a game. In fact, Madame Jin's intention of bringing them here today was very obvious. She wanted them to firmly grasp Lu Chen's potential. It was not to snatch a diamond bachelor, but to get Lu Chen's support in their career. People in Xiangjiang were very superstitious. There had always been a saying of benefactors in the circle. Madame Jean believed that Lu Chen was Ji Xiaodai and Li Xinyan's benefactor. Meeting him at Xu Jing's charity banquet was their fate and opportunity. She smiled and said, "Thank you so much, young Master Lu. I'll treat you to dinner tonight. It's on Xiaodai and Xinyan's tab." Lu Chen really admired this person. No wonder Xu Jing admired him so much when she mentioned him. It would be strange if such a person didn't mix well in the entertainment industry. Madame Jean was very observant. She had achieved her goal, so she didn't continue to pester him. After a while she stood up and said, "Young Master Lu still has guests, so we won't bother you anymore. I'll inform Miss Li after booking a table. See you tonight." Ji Xiaodai and Li Xinyan also stood up, bowed and said, "Goodbye, Teacher Lu. I'll see you out." Lu Chen personally saw Madame Jean and the others out and then returned to his office. Zhou Yi, the chairman of Jiayang Pictures, was already waiting there. Chapter 456. Zhou Yi was a very pure businessman. He was born in a middle-class family and received a good education from a young age. After graduating from a famous foreign university, he first engaged in foreign trade, and his business was doing very well. After earning the first pot of gold in his life, he quickly switched to the financial industry. After experiencing the 2002 stock crash in Xiangjiang and the rising tide of the housing market in 2005, his assets quickly accumulated more than 100 million, and he became a rather famous financial investor. 10 years later, Zhou Yi established his own investment fund, which had many investment projects in the real economy and the internet industry, and most of them were profitable. In Xiangjiang, Zhou Yi was definitely not one of the richest people, and he could not even be considered as one of the second richest. However, he was highly regarded in the industry, and was known for his accurate judgment and brilliant methods. According to Chen Wenxiang, Zhou Yi was a trustworthy business partner, but definitely not suitable to be a friend. This was because he always put profits first, and if his own interests were harmed, even if it was an old friend, he would turn against him. Therefore, this director of Jiayang Pictures had a mixed reputation in the industry. Some people had a good impression of him while others disliked him. When Lu Chen first saw Zhou Yi, his first impression was that he did not look like a businessman who only cared about profits. He was in his 40s, slender and refined, wearing a pair of black-rimmed glasses, and had a strong scholarly air. His face was fair without any facial hair, and he looked slightly feminine. His slender eyes were reserved. Apart from Zhou Yi, there was a man and a woman sitting in Lu Chen's office. The man should be Zhou Yi's bodyguard. He was dressed very smartly and his eyes were shining brightly. He stood silently in the corner. As for the woman, Lu Chen stared at her for 3 more seconds. It was not that Lu Chen was lecherous or impolite, but this beautiful woman in a long dress with picturesque features had an indescribable demeanor. She sat quietly on the sofa, as if she was a frozen painting of a court lady. "Mr. Zhou, sorry to keep you waiting." Lu Chen took a step forward and took the initiative to extend his hand to Zhou Yi. "Please forgive me for my negligence." Zhou Yi smiled and held Lu Chen's hand tightly as he replied, "Mr. Lu, you're exaggerating. I came abruptly." Usually, the meeting between the two of them should have been arranged beforehand. Zhou Yi and Madame Jin's arrival was very sudden. It felt like a surprise attack. Lu Chen asked, "These two are?" Zhou Yi smiled. "Let me introduce you. This is my cousin Nie Mingzhu." The woman in the white dress slowly stood up and extended her hand to Lu Chen, saying, "Hello, Mr. Lu." Her voice was very pleasant, a little soft, and she spoke fluent Mandarin. It had the taste of Jiangnan. "Hello." Lu Chen held her little hand and was a little surprised. "Miss Nie, have you lived in Suzhou before?" Nie Mingzhu smiled and said, "I was born in Xiangjiang, but I spent high school and university in Jinling. I even worked for Suyang for a year, so I can be considered half a Jiangnan person." There was a smile at the corner of her mouth, with a hint of playfulness, and her whole person seemed to have become lively because of it. Lu Chen was secretly amazed. In terms of appearance and temperament, among all the women he had seen, only Chen Feier and Qin Qing could be compared to her, and they condensed the beauty of heaven and earth. Lu Qin deduced that the other party's family background was definitely not ordinary. An ordinary family would not be able to cultivate such an outstanding young lady. Burying his thoughts in his heart, Lu Qin invited the two of them to sit down again and asked Li Zhen to bring a new cup of tea. The atmosphere between the two of them was very good. Zhou Yi did not explicitly state the purpose of his visit. Instead, he chatted with Lu Qin about the current film and television industry in Xiangjiang, including the existing problems and future development direction. He focused on the industry support policy that the Xiangjiang government had just introduced and its impact on the entire industry. Zhou Yi was obviously not the kind of person who boasted and spoke eloquently. He did not say much, but he was always able to hit the nail on the head. Many of his viewpoints made Lu Qin feel refreshed. Following this topic, Zhou Yi talked to Lu Qin about a Chinese ghost story. He thought that Lu Qin had chosen a good time to come to Xiangjiang to develop, and the success or failure of this movie was very important, especially in terms of quality. There was no room for sloppiness. According to the current news, there were only 24 movies produced in Xiangjiang that could be screened in the mainland through the support policy, which was exactly 2 movies per month. Compared to the number of movies produced in Xiangjiang every year, there were really too many monks and not enough gruel. The competition would definitely be extremely fierce, and getting a slot was not only based on connections but more importantly the quality of the movie. Even if a shoddy movie could pass the review and be screened in the mainland, it would still be a disgrace. The Xiangjiang government would definitely not agree to it. Lu Qin deeply agreed with this. He had an understanding of the policy conditions in this area, but not as in-depth as Zhou Yi. At this time, Nie Mingzhu, who had been playing the role of a listener, also interrupted. However, she was talking about the script of a Chinese ghost story. As for Jieyang Pictures, Lu Qin's studio had already sent the script over, so it was normal for Nie Mingzhu to have seen it. She was obviously very interested in the story that was adapted from Strange Tales from a Chinese studio. There were quite a lot of questions. Lu Qin patiently answered them one by one. He had already understood Zhou Yi's real intention. The other party did not mention it directly, undoubtedly because he did not want to fall into a passive position in the subsequent negotiations. Instead, he put the choice on his side. Zhou Yi finally said, Mingzhu graduated from the Jinling Film and Television Academy and majored in acting. Originally, she planned to stay in the country to develop, but her family was worried, so she returned to Xiangjiang. So that was it. Lu Qin nodded, indicating that he understood. There was no need to be too straightforward when talking to a smart person. After this exchange, although it did not involve any negotiation terms, in fact, the two parties had taken a big step towards the success of the cooperation. The following developments also proved this point. In the following days, Lu Qin's studio and Jieyang Pictures started a new round of negotiations, and finally reached an agreement on the 7th day after Lu Qin arrived in Xiangjiang. Both parties were very satisfied with this agreement. Lu Qin held his bottom line, and Jieyang Pictures not only got a share of the profits, but also got the female lead of a Chinese ghost story and another important supporting role, Grandma Tri. The one who played Nie Xiaoqian was Nie Mingzhu. On the 2nd day after signing the cooperation agreement with Jieyang Pictures, Lu Qin handed the follow-up matters to Chen Wenxiang and Wan Xiaoquan. He flew to Huhai with his assistant Zhang Xiaofeng, and then transferred to Wuming City. Chapter 457. Lu Qin flew to Wuming to visit the set. The object of the visit was of course his girlfriend, Chen Feier. The latter was filming the long historical TV series, Xingshi Longsong, on the Mongolian steppe. She had been there for several days, and it was said that the conditions were quite difficult. Xingshi Longsong was the 2017 blockbuster TV series of CCTV. It had a huge investment and a strong cast. Naturally, the shooting period was very long and most of the scenes were shot in real scenes. This was the unchanging feature of CCTV's blockbuster TV series for decades. Big scenes and big pictures, especially when it came to military and war-related content. Even Hollywood would be stunned by the manpower and resources used. For an important role played by Chen Feier, it was very normal for her to go to the Mongolian steppe or the Gobi Desert to film for dozens of days. After arriving in Wuming City, the capital of Mongolia, Lu Qin and Zhang Xiaofeng left the airport and got the off-road vehicle that Beijing studio had arranged in advance. Then they drove to the filming site more than 700 kilometers away. The Mongolian province, with a total area of more than 2.7 million square kilometers, was the largest province in China. At the beginning of the last century, Outer Mongolia was separated from China and returned to the embrace of the motherland in the 1970s. After leaving Wuming City, the surrounding terrain quickly opened up. The rolling hills and green grasslands became the most important scenery along the way. After driving along the highway for more than 300 kilometers, it was already dark by the time they reached Bardo City. The two stayed in Bader City for a night, filled up the off-road vehicle and continued northwest. Out of Bader City, they entered the vast Mongolian steppe. There were basically no regular roads here. Without the guidance of a satellite navigation system, it was very easy to get lost and not find the way back. But driving a powerful off-road vehicle on the steppe was definitely a kind of enjoyment. Opening the roof of the vehicle, bathing in the sun and wind, freely driving to one's heart's content, let people's mood fly with the release of dandelions. This was the first time that Lu Qin had come to Mongolia. On the way he exchanged seats with Zhang Xiaofeng and drove by himself, enjoying the feeling of being far away from the world. At 8 o'clock in the morning they set off from Bader City. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the two found Shuquanwai, where the film crew of CCTV's Xingshi Longsong was located. Shuquanwai was a large settlement for the local Mongolians. It was located by the Little Mirror Lake and had a population of more than 10,000. The Mongolians had been living a nomadic life for generations, but in modern times with the continuous growth of the population and the development of animal husbandry, the contradiction between survival and the environment became increasingly prominent. In order to protect the ecology of the prairie, many Mongolians began to live a settled life. Shuquanwai was such a settlement, which was equivalent to a grassland town. It was a local tourist attraction, and because of the relatively good conditions and facilities, it became the base of the CCTV Xingshi Longsong film crew. From afar, Lu Qin could see Ao Bao standing on a high slope with a colorful flag fluttering in the wind. The Ao Bao was a landmark on the grassland and also the place where the herdsmen offered sacrifices. It was telling Lu Qin that he had finally reached his destination after traveling thousands of kilometers from the south to the north. Shuquanwai covered a large area. The central area was composed of large buildings and bungalows with white walls and green tiles. There were many beautiful Mongolian yurts scattered around the town on the grassland, and scattered cattle and sheep could be seen everywhere. In the distance was the sparkling Little Mirror Lake, and a group of horses were eating grass by the lake, chasing and playing. It was really a picturesque scenery. By inquiring the local villagers, Lu Qin easily found the place where the film crew was stationed. It was an independent compound, and a vehicle with the words Xingshi Longsong Film Crew was parked in front of the gate. He must have found the right place. There was a staff member in the compound. When Lu Qin went in to inquire, the staff member recognized him at a glance. "Are you Lu Qin?" The staff member of the Central TV film crew was very surprised. "Why are you here? Don't tell me you're here to film with our crew? I haven't received any notice." Lu Qin was not on the cast list of Xingshi Longsong film crew, but it was normal for such a strong cast to add or lose an actor temporarily. It was not worth making a fuss about. Lu Qin smiled and said, "I'm here to visit." "Visit?" The staff member was suddenly speechless. It was also normal for actors and artists to have friends in the circle to visit when they were filming outside. However, this was the central area of the Mongolian grassland, and the nearest city was hundreds of kilometers away. The staff member was very experienced, but he had never seen anyone like Lu Qin. He suddenly came to a realization. "You're here to see Qin Feier, aren't you? Wasn't Qin Feier Lu Qin's girlfriend?" The relationship between the two of them was really good. The staff member sighed and said enviously, "Miss Qin and the crew are filming at the hunting ground. I guess they won't be back for 2 days. It's more than 100 kilometers away from Shuquanwai." Lu Qin replied without thinking, "Then I'll drive there myself." It's not hard to drive more than 100 kilometers. He had already run thousands of kilometers. How could he miss more than 100 kilometers? The staff member asked with a smile, "You didn't come without informing Miss Qin, did you?" Lu Qin nodded a little embarrassedly. He didn't inform Qin Feier in advance that he came to visit her. The purpose was to give her a surprise. During his time in Hong Kong, the two talked on the phone every day. He knew that Qin Feier had a hard time filming and he almost had a scandal. Although it was just a misunderstanding and it had been solved, he still felt a little sorry in his heart. Therefore, before the shooting of A Chinese Ghost Story officially began, Lu Qin rushed over to visit her. It was difficult for lovers in the entertainment industry to stay together for a long time. If the relationship wanted to remain unchanged, both sides needed to maintain it carefully. Although the relationship between the two had always been very good, it didn't mean that they didn't need to be cared for. Sure enough, The other party slapped his thigh. I knew it would be like this. It's really romantic. Then I'll go with you and give you something by the way so that you don't go the wrong way. Lucien was surprised. That won't delay you, right? The staff member said with a smile. It doesn't matter. There are other people stationed inside. I'll just tell them. Lucien was grateful. Thank you so much. You're welcome. The other party waved his hand and said with a smile, just give me an autographed photo. My sister is your fan. Lucien smiled. Tell me your sister's address later. I'll ask Beijing Studio to send her a signed limited edition album. Great. So, under the leadership of the crew member, Lu Qin and Qin Feier drove to the hunting ground 100 kilometers away again. They traveled all the way just to meet their beloved. Chapter 458. The filming location of Golden Song Row was a hunting ground more than 100 kilometers away from Shuiquan Circle. The hunting ground was located on the bank of Shuiquan River, which was the only source of Little Mirror Lake. The hunting ground covered an area of hundreds of square kilometers, covered in virgin forests and mountains, so there were a lot of wild animals. Due to the need for ecological protection, the hunting ground had basically lost its function, but the name Shuiquan Hunting Ground had been retained, and it had become a good scenic spot. The crew of Golden Song Row had gone to Shuiquan Hunting Ground to film yesterday. According to the plan, they would not be able to return to Shuiquan Circle until tomorrow, and that was only if the filming went smoothly. On the way to Shuiquan Hunting Ground, the crew member who acted as a temporary guide enthusiastically introduced the environment there to Lu Qin. There were also Mongolian settlements in Shuiquan Hunting Ground, so the conditions there were not too bad. He obviously didn't want Lu Qin to worry about Qin Feier's living conditions there, so Lu Qin could be at ease. Zhang Xiaofeng drove very steadily, and after about an hour and a half, they finally saw the wooden fence outside Shuiquan Hunting Ground, as well as the fluttering battle flag. Passing through the obviously temporary gate, the off-road vehicle drove into the settlement of the hunting ground. There were tents scattered at the foot of the mountain, and one of them was especially eye-catching, golden. That's the Khan's golden tent. The staff member who led the way introduced it proudly. I built it with a group of brothers, and we also asked a lot of herdsmen to help. Many of the props were custom-made from Wuming City. Lu Qin was surprised. You're a props master? The man was surprised. I'm working hard in this area. My current job is a props master. He had come to Shuiquan Hunting Ground with a few props. We're here. The car stopped next to a Mongolian yurt, where several vehicles of the crew were already parked. The staff member jumped out of the car first, grabbed a colleague nearby and asked, Do you know where Qin Feier is filming now? The colleague rolled his eyes. What do you want? He gestured to Lu Qin, who had just gotten out of the car. He's here to visit you. His colleague's eyes widened. F***ck, this master actually came here. He's really capable. The guide smiled and said, Our relationship is good. One day apart feels like 3 years. It's understandable. His colleague was impressed. I'm impressed. They should be in the golden tent now. I think they're almost done. The staff explained to Lu Qin. Lu Qin, of course, expressed his understanding. Then I'll wait here for the crew to finish filming. I won't disturb your work. The staff member smiled and said, All right then, I'll have to send the props over first. Excuse me. Lu Qin thanked him again. After bidding farewell to the warm-hearted man, Lu Qin let Zhang Xiaofeng stay in the car while he wandered around the hunting grounds. Other than a few wooden houses, the rest were basically tents. There were also a large number of cattle, sheep, and horses outside, so the smell was not very pleasant. The people who came and went were all Mongolians. They were all very enthusiastic and took the initiative to greet Lu Qin when they saw him. Some even invited Lu Qin to sit in their tents. Lu Qin responded politely but declined the invitation, saying that he had something else to do. Are you also here to film? As he wandered around to watch the fun, he suddenly heard a crisp voice next to him, as pleasant as an oriole. Lu Qin couldn't help but turn his head and see a little Mongolian girl standing a few steps away. She was about 13 or 14 years old. Her skin was dark, but her eyes were big and lively. She was wearing traditional ethnic clothing with a pink, green, and blue tunic dress. Her black hair was tied into small braids, and her pointed hat was inlaid with colorful gems. She was a little Mongolian beauty. She was also holding a long whip in her hand. Behind the little girl was a little brat with a runny nose. He was probably her younger brother. He was tugging at his sister's belt and timidly peeking at Lu Qin. Lu Qin found it interesting. He leaned over and replied with a smile, I'm not here to film. I'm here to visit. The other party's Mandarin was very standard, without any regional accent. Visit? The little girl clearly didn't understand the meaning of the word. Lu Chen explained, I'm here to visit a friend who's filming. The little girl suddenly understood. Then he must be a very, very good friend of yours, right? Lu Chen nodded with a smile and asked, Little girl, what's your name? The little girl replied very seriously, My name is Jejintana. I'll be an adult in 2 years. She meant that she wasn't young anymore. Lu Chen chuckled. Jejintana? The pearl of the grassland. What a nice name. Jejintana was surprised. You know the meaning of my name? Lu Chen smiled but didn't say anything. In Mongolian, Jejintana meant pearl. Lu Chen had found it out from Fang Mingyi's memory. The latter could speak simple Mongolian and had traveled on the Mongolian grassland. However, in Fang Mingyi's world, Outer Mongolia didn't return to the motherland, which became a pain in the hearts of countless people. The memory came back and for a moment he couldn't help but be absent-minded. Jejintana rolled her dark eyes and asked, How long are you going to stay in the spring hunting ground? Lu Chen came back to his senses and replied with a smile, Just a day or 2. I came from Xiangjiang. Xiangjiang? For Jejintana, Xiangjiang was undoubtedly a very distant place. There was a trace of confusion on her face. Who's your visiting friend? Lu Chen said, Her name is Qin Fei. Do you know her? Sister Fei. Jejintana's eyes suddenly lit up. Your sister Fei friend? She was very smart. Boyfriend? Lu Chen nodded with a smile. Jejintana's face fell a little as if she had thought of something. Lu Chen. Lu Chen was about to speak when he suddenly heard Zhang Xiaofang's shout, which made his heart tighten. It must be that Qin Fei was about to come out after the shooting at the Golden Tent. He didn't have time to chat with this very interesting Mongolian girl and said, I'm going over. Goodbye. Wait. Jejintana suddenly stopped Lu Chen, then stuffed the whip in her hand into his hand and said, This is for you. Don't lose it. After saying that, she turned around and ran away with her brother, disappearing between the yurts in the blink of an eye. Lu Chen held the whip in a daze, but it was too late for him to refuse. But he didn't care about such a small thing now, because he had already seen a figure appear at the Golden Tent from a long distance. Lu Chen ran in that direction without thinking. The familiar figure became clearer and clearer. Chapter 459. With tired steps, Qin Fei walked out of the Khan's Golden Tent, which served as a temporary shooting site. What she wanted to do most now was to go back to the Mongolian yurt where she lived, lie on the bed covered with a velvet blanket and have a good sleep. She didn't want to think about anything and then sleep until the next morning. Shooting on location was very troublesome and tiring. It was undoubtedly a big test for Qin Fei to travel thousands of kilometers from the prosperous and comfortable big city to the boundless Mongolian steppe. She started her career as a singer and had guest roles in several movies before. Autumn in My Heart was her first time to play the female lead role, which could be considered as her real entry into the film and television industry. But whether it was Autumn in My Heart or Full House of Romance, although the shooting of the 2 urban romance dramas was very busy, the crew took good care of her. In addition, many scenes were shot in the film and television city, so it was not very hard. Shengshi Long Song Line was completely different. As the annual drama of CCTV, this long TV series involved many characters. Qin Fei was not a top big shot among them. Naturally, she didn't want to get the best care. Moreover, the director of this TV series, Zhang Ku, had always been known for his strict requirements for actors in the circle. He was experienced and famous and backed by the towering tree of CCTV, so he dared to point out the mistakes made by any big stars and even scolded them. If a scene did not meet his requirements, Zhang Ku would let the actor perform again and again until he was finally satisfied. After the training of 2 TV series, Qin Fei's acting skills could be said to have improved a lot compared to before. But obviously she could not completely meet Zhang Ku's standards, so she suffered a lot in this regard. Most importantly, even if she suffered a lot, Qin Fei would grit her teeth and stick to it. Not only because this TV series could greatly improve her position in the circle, but also because she wanted to prove her ability to everyone. Of course, in this way she worked even harder. At this moment, Qin Fei could not help thinking of Lu Chen in Hong Kong. He must be living a good life. Maybe he was drinking coffee with a beautiful woman now. Lu Chen. Just as Qin Fei was letting her imagination run wild, the assistant beside her suddenly screamed, Sister Fei, Lu Chen is here. Qin Fei was stunned for a moment. He wondered if he was hallucinating. Why is Lu Chen here? This wasn't Beijing or the Jinling Film City. It was the hinterland of the vast Mongolian steppe, and the nearest city was hundreds of kilometers away. However, the next moment, Qin Fei saw Lu Qin running towards him. It really was Lu Qin. Qin Fei couldn't believe her eyes. The huge surprise instantly made her eyes blur with tears. All the tiredness, grievance, and bitterness in her heart disappeared, leaving only an incomparable sweetness. Under the watchful eyes of the public, she rushed forward and threw herself into Lu Qin's arms. Lu Qin hugged Qin Fei. In contrast, he was much more rational. He noticed all kinds of strange eyes from all directions, so he could only resist the impulse in his heart and did not make any overly intimate moves. He patted his girlfriend's back and whispered, "You've lost weight." The tears in her eyes suddenly fell. Qin Fei wanted to cry in his arms, but she didn't forget where she was. She gently broke away from Lu Qin's arms, reached out her hand to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes and asked, "Why are you here?" Lu Qin smiled and said, "I missed you, so I came." The onlookers expressed that these words of love gave them goosebumps all over their bodies. Many single people suffered 10,000 points of critical damage at the same time. They simply couldn't continue to watch. "Qin Fei, is this your boyfriend?" The words of praise came from a dark and thin middle-aged man. He was about 40 or 50 years old, wearing a dark gray jacket. His hair was messy and his cheekbones were high. He looked at the two of them with a pair of bright eyes. Qin Fei hurriedly introduced him to Lu Qin. "This is our director, Director Zhang Kazhang." "Hello, Director Zhang." Lu Qin immediately stepped forward and took the initiative to extend his hands to him. "I'm Lu Qin. I've heard a lot about you." It was estimated that everyone in the country knew Director Zhang Kazhang, and Lu Qin was no exception. He was a direct TV series director of CCTV. He had shot large-scale historical series such as Qin, Romance of Sui and Tang, The Ming Empire, Opium War, and so on. Not only was he well known in China, but he also had a great reputation in the Asian film and television industry. In front of this great senior in the circle, no matter how many TV series and movies Lu Qin had shot, he was still a junior. Zhang Ke shook hands with Lu Qin and a smile appeared on his serious face. "I know you. Zhang Wenyan once mentioned you to me. Is Wan Xiaoquan helping you now?" Lu Qin replied respectfully, "Yes, Director Wan is currently in Hong Kong to shoot my first movie." Zhang Ke nodded. "It's not easy for Wan Xiaoquan either. You're very good." He looked at Qin Fei and said, "As Qin Fei's boyfriend, you are qualified." Everyone laughed. At this moment there were a lot of people around, many of whom were actors in the crew. They were still wearing their costumes. Those with high status could stand in, while the extras could only look at them from afar and point at them. The male actors admired and envied Lu Qin, while the female actors mostly admired and envied him. It was very common for stars to visit the set, but coming here to visit the set was not something that ordinary people could do. Lu Qin was a little embarrassed by their laughter. Qin Fei pursed her lips and smiled, and the corners of her lips curled up with the taste of happiness. She introduced other actors to Lu Qin. "This is Big Brother Shi Lang. This is Yen Kong Teacher Yen. Sister Ruan." The main actors that Qin Fei introduced to Lu Qin were all big shots in the film and television circle. The most famous one was undoubtedly Shi Lang, who played the leading actor. He had won 3 major domestic film awards and starred in several popular films and TV series. Shi Lang was tall and handsome. At first glance, one could tell that he was the image of a positive character. His attitude towards Lu Qin was very good, and he did not have the slightest airs of a big shot. After the introduction of a circle of people, Zhang Ke said, "You can go. Remember not to delay tomorrow's shooting." His words were sincere and meaningful. Several actresses giggled, and Shi Lang and the others also smiled ambiguously. Qin Fei's face was red with laughter, and she hurriedly pulled Lu Qin to the tent where she lived. Chapter 460. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. They hadn't seen each other for more than half a month. Couples in love always wanted to be together at all times. Being apart from each other was the most difficult thing to bear. When they met again, the flames of love would naturally burn especially fiercely. It was just that it wasn't dark yet, and the crew had just finished shooting. There were people coming and going outside the tent and it was very lively. Under such circumstances, Lu Qin could only forcibly suppress the impulse and have a little warmth with Qin Fei to resolve his lovesickness. Qin Fei who was blushing, grabbed Lu Qin's hand that was moving in her skirt. She said shyly with her beautiful eyes, "Okay, let's talk about it at night." Her eyes were so charming that they were about to drip water. She was very attractive. Fortunately, Lu Chen's willpower was strong enough. Otherwise he would really push her down at all costs. He reluctantly withdrew his hand and lowered his head to kiss Chen Fei's pretty face. The two leaned against each other and talked about their respective situations. Lu Chen told Chen Fei everything he had encountered in Xiangjiang. Compared to Chen Fei who was filming here, he could say a lot more. So most of the time it was Chen Fei who was listening. After listening, Chen Fei said with a smile, "You're lucky. You actually got a like from Lu Gangxing. With him protecting you, you can do whatever you want in Xiangjiang's entertainment circle." What she said, Lu Chen was impressed by his girlfriend. She must have seen a lot of gangster films in Xiangjiang. "Do you know Lu Gangxing?" Chen Fei replied, "I've seen him twice but I'm not familiar with him. My main friends in Xiangjiang are Sister Xu Jing." Lu Chen asked, "What about Madame Jean?" Chen Fei smiled and said, "Madame Jean is too smart. We can cooperate but not be friends." Lu Chen nodded. He thought of Zhou. Chen Fei's evaluation was very accurate. Madame Jean was not much different from Zhou. Chen Fei picked up the whip on the bedside table and asked curiously, "Where did you get this?" Lu Chen explained, "I met a Mongolian girl just now, Jejentana. She forced it on me. It was not good to throw away a gift from someone else, so when he came in just now, he casually placed it here." "Jejentana?" Chen Fei was surprised. "Is it Jejentana from the Qian family? That pretty little girl?" Lu Chen wasn't sure. "I think so." Chen Fei's eyes widened. He waved the whip in his hand. "She gave you this whip and you accepted it? You didn't return it to her?" "Ah." Lu Chen suddenly felt like he had fallen into a trap. "Is there a problem?" Chen Fei immediately laughed, shaking like a flower. She leaned on Lu Chen's shoulder and said with a smile, "This is a girl's whip for Mongolian girls. They are all made by themselves and usually only given to their sweetheart. It's equivalent to a token of love. Jejentana fell in love with you at first sight. That's why she gave you this whip the moment they met." "You actually accepted it?" Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How would I know? He really didn't know. In Fang Mingyi's memory of Mongolia, there didn't seem to be such a custom. "Then I'll return it." Chen Fei criticized, "Jejentana is a good girl. Don't you think you're hurting her heart by doing this?" Lu Chen was speechless. "Then what should I do?" Chen Fei said with a smile, "You don't have to do anything. This was a custom in the past. It doesn't matter now. When Jejentana meets someone she really likes, she will naturally weave another whip. Actually, someone in our crew also received a whip. If Brother Sherlang hadn't found out what was going on later, I'm afraid he would have wrapped it up and brought it back. So that was how it was." Lu Chen was finally relieved. He knew that Chen Fei was deliberately teasing him. He reached out to tickle Chen Fei in revenge. Chen Fei was most afraid of tickles. She laughed and dodged. Suddenly she grabbed a whip from behind her like a magic trick and waved it at Lu Chen. She said proudly, "Don't you dare bully me. I have one too. Be careful or I'll whip you." Mongolian women were like wild horses on the grassland. Timid and wretched cowards couldn't conquer them. They liked real men, and this whip was used to tame wild horses. Taking the initiative to give the whip represented entrusting one's fate. On the other hand, it could also be used as a weapon to whip unfaithful men. It had a double meaning. Jejentana had taught Chen Fei how to weave her whip. It was actually very easy to distinguish an ordinary whip from a girl's whip. The latter had a red concentric knot on the handle, so it was very easy to distinguish. The sweet time always passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, the sky turned dark. The herdsmen set up a bonfire on the grass by the river and invited the crew to join their feast. Lu Chen was lucky enough to sit together and enjoy the fragrant roast lamb and horse milk wine. All the main members of the crew were present. Director Zhang Ku, the main actor Sherlang, and the others were all sitting around the bonfire. Here, regardless of their status in the circle, they were all guests of the Mongolian herdsmen who were enthusiastic and generous. The bonfire blazed, fireflies danced, and a bright moon hung high in the sky. The grassland shrouded in the night sky was exceptionally beautiful. When they were drunk, a burly man stood up and said loudly, "Ladies, men, let's dance and welcome our friends from the capital." Chen Fei lowered her voice and said to Lu Chen, "This is Jejentana's father, the owner of the spring hunting ground. We all call him Uncle Begging Face." The young herdsmen around them stood up one after another. A few old Mongolians played the horsehead zither and the peace drum, instantly pushing the atmosphere to a climax. The Mongolians were a people who loved singing and dancing. Their songs and dances had been passed down from generation to generation. Even today they still had a charming charm. They were passionate, bold, and full of optimism, making people smile when they heard them. Under their lead, the crew also cast aside their reservations and sang and danced along, sharing the joy together. After the song was finished, one of the herdsmen shouted, "Let the guests sing a song too, okay?" The young herdsmen cheered loudly and applauded in unison. As the saying goes, it's hard to refuse hospitality. Under such circumstances, how could the guests not show their skills? Therefore, everyone's eyes fell on Lu Qin and Qin Feier. When it came to singing, who could compete with this couple? Lu Qin and Qin Feier looked at each other. The latter pursed her lips and said with a smile, "You sing." Lu Qin did not refuse. He stood up big and said, "Then I'll show my incompetence and sing a song." Applause and cheers rang out again. Chapter 461. More and more people gathered around the bonfire by the river. It felt like all the herdsmen in the hunting ground had arrived. The light from the burning fire illuminated the faces, like a huge oil painting, yet extremely vivid. The jade ribbon-like spring river flowed quietly on the grassland, the ripples sparkling. That was the radiance of the moon. The neighing of steeds could be heard from afar. A light breeze blew past, carrying the fragrance of earth and grass in the air. Under everyone's gaze, Lu Qin strode up to an old herdsman, bowed and asked, "Sir, may I borrow your horse-head zither?" The old herdsman was very old. The dark skin on his face showed deep scars of time. His hair was white and his eyes were cloudy. However, he was very good at playing the horse-head zither. Hearing that Lu Qin wanted to borrow his zither, the old herdsman grinned, revealing his uneven yellow teeth. His wrinkled face looked like a chrysanthemum. He generously handed the zither to Lu Qin. "Here." "Thank you." Lu Qin took the zither and bowed again to express his gratitude. The zither looked very old, probably as old as the old herdsman in front of him, but it was well maintained. The materials used for the head, the shaft, and the resonating box were quite exquisite. The dark maroon surface had a clear coating. Only those who knew their stuff would know how precious such an ancient horsehead zither was. Everyone was shocked. Be it Uncle Begging and the other herdsmen, or the crew members like Zhang Ku and Shirlang, no one had expected Lu Qin to play with a horsehead zither. Many people present knew that Lu Qin played the guitar very well, but a guitar and a horsehead zither were two different things. He could not possibly play a horsehead zither with the same technique he used on the guitar, could he? That would be a joke. Lu Qin sat down on a small folding stool. He held the horsehead zither in his arms and said, "This is my first time coming to the Mongolian grassland. It's so beautiful, it feels like the home of my dreams. At the same time, I'm very grateful to my Mongolian friends for your hospitality, so this song is for you." Although there were a lot of people gathered around, when Lu Qin spoke, everyone was very polite to keep quiet, so his voice could be clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. Hearing Lu Qin's praise for the Mongolian steppe, the herdsman smiled proudly. As soon as he finished speaking, the enthusiastic herdsman immediately gave him a round of applause. Lu Qin smiled and waited for the applause to subside. Then he said, "The name of this song is, 'The Beautiful Grassland is My Home.'" "The Beautiful Grassland is My Home?" Zhang Ku, Shirlang, and the other crew members couldn't help but look at each other, because they had never heard this song before. The Mongolian herdsmen could basically understand Chinese. They didn't know that this song was an original work by Lu Qin. When they heard the title of the song, they felt that it was perfect. Wasn't the beautiful grassland their home? Therefore, everyone clapped and cheered again. Among the people present, only Qin Feier understood. She gazed at Lu Qin affectionately. Her eyes were filled with gentle love and pride. "Sister Feier." At this moment, a delicate figure quietly came to Qin Feier's side. Qin Feier immediately smiled. "Sister Jejentana." The little Mongolian girl had a look of shame on her face. She stammered and said in a low voice, "Sister Feier, I gave my whip to brother Lu Qin." Women on the grassland dared to love and hate. When they met someone they liked, they dared to take the initiative to confess. They would never hide their feelings for others to guess. Jejentana was no exception. She had never seen a Han man as handsome as Lu Qin, so she gave him her whip. But after thinking about it, Lu Qin was Sister Feier's boyfriend. It was wrong of her to do so. Therefore, after a fierce struggle, she finally came to Qin Feier and apologized. "Don't be angry." "Silly sister." Qin Feier smiled and held Jejentana in her arms. "Sister won't be angry because sister knows that Jejentana is a good girl, so let's listen to the song together." She liked Jejentana very much. How could she be jealous and angry because of the little girl's budding feelings? It was normal for many girls to like a man like Lu Qin. On the other side, Lu Qin had already begun to sing. The sound of the horsehead zither was melodious, playing a beautiful melody. The beautiful grassland is my home. The wind blows the green grass and flowers everywhere, butterflies flutter and birds sing, a bend of clear water reflects the sunset glow, steeds are like colorful clouds, cattle and sheep scatter like pearls. Ah ha ha, the shepherd girl sang loudly, and her happy voice filled the world. The song, "The Beautiful Grassland is My Home," was a widely sung classic in Lu Chen's dream world. The song, with a beautiful pastoral tune, praised the picturesque scenery of the Mongolian grassland and the happy life of the herdsman, and had been covered by countless singers. Lu Qin played the horsehead zither, and it could be said to be an original interpretation. The first two bars were a series of upward and upward movements, as if herdsmen were climbing high to overlook the vast grassland, the yurts blooming like lotus flowers and the cattle and sheep scattered on the pasture like pearls, making people involuntarily immersed in the atmosphere created by the song. Later, there was a sublimation in the music, pouring out the infinite praise of the herdsmen for the beauty of their hometown. The continuous ups and downs and a progressive sense of narration made the lyrical color of the song more rich. At this moment, this place, this scenery, this zither, this song, who could not be intoxicated? The beautiful grassland is my home, the water is clear and the grass is beautiful, I love it, the grassland is like a green sea, the yurts are like white lotus flowers, the herdsmen describe a happy scene, the spring scenery is picturesque. Ah ha ha ha, the shepherd girl sings loudly, her happy voice is heard all over the world, the shepherd girl sings loudly, her happy voice is heard all over the world. The structure of the second paragraph was exactly the same as the previous one. The four phrases developed in a square. In addition to a deeper level of improvement in the music in terms of lyricism, there was a more lingering charm. In particular, there was a long note in the last sentence with a strong attachment, that was the author's love and love for the beautiful grassland, a reluctant confession. The sound of the zither and the song lingered, drifting between the yurts, across the spring river, and fluttering over the boundless grassland. Until the end of Lu Chen's singing, no one spoke. The surroundings were quiet, as if a magic of time had been cast, and only the crackling sound of the firewood burning in the bonfire reminded people. Many herdsmen were intoxicated by the song, and many even had tears in their eyes. Born here, grow up here, sing here, cry here and die here. Perhaps they did not know these words, but their love for their hometown had long been integrated into their bones and blood, and that strong and blazing emotion was completely aroused by Lu Chen's singing at this moment. The beautiful grassland is my home. Note, the beautiful grassland is my home, lyricist, Huohua/composer, Alateng Ol. Chapter 462. Times were developing, society was progressing, and the influence of modern civilization was everywhere. The Mongolians, who had lived a nomadic life for generations, were gradually changing their way of life. Many young people in the tribe went out to explore the bustling big cities and see the more wonderful world outside. Some never returned and some went and came back again. But for those who left and those who continued to stick to this land, the prairie would always be their home, their root, and their spiritual sustenance that could not be erased by thousands of mountains and rivers. Lu Chen's song, "The Beautiful Prairie is My Home," was also the voice of the herdsmen, so it touched their hearts and shook their souls. They couldn't calm down for a long time. Good. Uncle Qian's roar woke up those who were still immersed in the song. Holding a big bowl of horse milk wine, he strode in front of Lu Qin and said in a deep voice, "Young man, this is the best song I, Qian, have ever heard in my life. This bowl of wine is for you." This was Jejentana's father, a Mongolian man. He had the back of a tiger, the waist of a bear, and the appearance of a boorish man. His square face was dark red and his hair was thick. He looked powerful and strong and he exuded a valiant aura. But when he looked at Lu Qin, his eyes were full of admiration. Lu Qin quickly put down the horsehead zither and took the huge bowl with both hands. Uncle Qian was the owner of this hunting ground, equivalent to the tribe's leader. He personally toasted Lu Qin. Even if he was drunk, he couldn't refuse this bowl of wine. Fortunately, the horse milk wine was a low-alcohol wine, mild in nature and not to the point of intoxication. So Lu Qin put the silver bowl to his mouth and drank the wine in one gulp, without missing a drop. Good. Uncle Qian praised loudly again and gave Lu Qin a thumbs up, and the surrounding herdsmen cheered in unison. Lu Qin conquered this group of unruly grassland men with his performance. Zhang Ku, who was sitting not far away, saw this and sighed in his heart. Although he was a film director and not a music professional, his understanding of music undoubtedly far exceeded that of ordinary people. Zhang Ke had never heard of Beautiful Prairie My Home, but it was absolutely impossible for such a song with a beautiful melody and moving lyrics to remain unknown. The only explanation was that it was Lu Chen's original work, and he had improvised it after he came to the Mongolian steppe. In the circle, Lu Chen is famous for his creativity and is known as the #1 of the new generation of singers. What kind of talent was that? Zhang Ke had seen many talented and capable young people, but Lu Chen had undoubtedly left the deepest impression on him. An idea suddenly popped into the director's mind. Begging Uncle asked, "Young man, who wrote the song you are singing?" "His name is Lu Chen and he is Sister Fei Er's boyfriend." At this time Jejentana came out and revealed Lu Chen's identity. She looked at Lu Chen with longing eyes and asked, "Brother Lu Chen, this song is really beautiful. Can you teach me? I want to sing it to all the grassland people at this year's White Festival party." The White Festival was the most solemn and grand annual festival of the Mongolians, equivalent to the Spring Festival. Starting on the first day of the first lunar month, people made New Year's greetings to each other, toasted, dined, sang and danced to their heart's content, and had entertainment to celebrate the health and happiness of the whole year. Begging Uncle Qian smiled and touched his daughter's head. This was his most cherished pearl. Lu Chen said with a smile, "I wrote this song. If you like it, I'll let you sing it." "Really?" Jejentana was surprised and delighted. She clapped her hands and said, "That's great." Her laughter was as pleasant as a silver bell, full of joy and joy. Many people in the crew looked at Jejentana in a different way, because the latter obviously did not know that the price of a song by Lu Chen was one of the highest in the circle. Lu Chen was able to rise miraculously in the entertainment circle and win the heart of Chen Fei. His talent in music creation was the most important factor, and he had made more than 1 or 2 new stars popular. Jejentana got the song Beautiful Grassland My Home. Even if it was just a cover, as long as she manipulated it, did it mean that a star would rise on the grassland? Others could not get it, but she could get it with just a word. How could people not be envious, jealous and hateful? Really? Begging Uncle Qian was also surprised. He widened his eyes, waved his hand and said, "Bring another bowl of wine." The way this grassland man expressed his gratitude and admiration was always so simple and direct. It was hard for Lu Chen to refuse such hospitality, so he had to drink another big bowl of horse milk wine. Even if the alcohol content of horse milk wine was low, it could not withstand such drinking. After finishing the second bowl, his face turned red and he was really a little drunk. Begging Uncle Qian laughed and patted Lu Chen on the shoulder. "Good man." Lu Chen could only smile bitterly. After the bonfire dinner, Lu Chen was supported by Chen Fei and staggered back to her tent. Helping Lu Chen lie down on the soft and comfortable bed, Chen Fei fetched some hot water, wrung a towel in the basin and thoughtfully put it on his face. The heat seeped into the skin through the pores, making people feel comfortable, and also made Lu Chen's drunkenness dissipate a lot. He took a long and comfortable breath, and his whole person became much more sober. Chen Fei said coquettishly, "You drank too much last night." Lu Chen said helplessly, "I didn't want to, but they all came to get me drunk." In addition to the herdsmen, the crew members also tried to get him drunk. Even Shirlang had offered him a bowl, so how could he not drink? Of course he couldn't, so he drank too much. Chen Fei said in disgust, "You reek of alcohol. Don't touch me at night." Lu Chen chuckled and suddenly reached out to grab her, pulling her directly into his arms and leaned over to kiss her. He said vaguely, "I want to touch you." Chen Fei giggled and resisted. She turned her head and said, "Then sing me a song, one I haven't heard before." She had made similar requests several times, and she was pleasantly surprised every time. This time Lu Chen even gave Jejentana a song. Lu Chen gave up and pretended to be deep in thought. After a while he said, "Got it." He hugged Chen Fei and hummed softly in her ear. "In a faraway place there is a good girl. When people pass by her accounting room they will look back longingly. Her pink smiling face like the red sun. Her beautiful and moving eyes, like the bright moonlight at night. I would like to be a little lamb to follow her to herd sheep. I would like her to hold a thin whip. Keep hitting me gently." Lu Chen's singing became very, very soft, and in the end, it was almost undetectable. Then it turned into the sound of even breathing. He couldn't resist the alcohol and had already fallen asleep. Chen Fei tightly leaned against Lu Chen's broad chest. She only wished that time would stop at this moment forever. It was so warm. Chapter 463. Early in the morning, when Lu Qin woke up from his sleep, the first thing he saw was Qin Fei curled up in his arms. She was still sleeping soundly with a faint smile on her lips. Lu Qin hugged her arm tighter and sniffed the familiar fragrance of his girlfriend. He didn't want to get up. Achoo. However, a knotty strand of hair accidentally touched Lu Qin's nose, causing him to sneeze. As a result, Qin Fei was woken up. Lu Qin rubbed his nose in embarrassment and asked with a smile, "You're awake? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" Qin Fei shook her head and leaned her body against Lu Qin lazily. She said in a sweet voice, "I still have filming today." It was wishful thinking to sleep in when working in Director Zhang's crew. No matter how famous you were, you still had to abide by his rules. Otherwise, the wisest choice was to leave. Zhang Ku had reminded her yesterday, so Qin Fei didn't dare to take it lightly. Sigh. Lu Qin couldn't help but sigh. He traveled thousands of miles to visit the Mongolian grasslands. He thought that he could spend the night with Qin Fei and enjoy the scenery of the grasslands together, but it turned out to be just a dream. Qin Fei giggled and turned her head to kiss her boyfriend to comfort him. How could this be enough? Lu Qin had to press her under his body, ready to seize the time to do something indescribable. Speaking of which, the best time last night was wasted. It was an unforgivable mistake. After being separated for more than half a month, Qin Fei was also aroused and passionately catered to him. Sister Fei, brother Lu Qin. Just when the two of them were about to explode, a clear shout came from outside the tent. "Are you guys up?" Gigantana. Lu Qin, who was like an arrow on the bowstring, suddenly felt as if a basin of ice water had been poured over his head. He couldn't help but curse in a low voice. What the hell was going on? Qin Fei, whose face was flushed, rolled her eyes at him coquettishly, struggled to get up from the bed, put on her coat and walked out. "Sister Gigantana, what's the matter?" It turned out that Gigantana had brought breakfast to the two of them. There was milk, tea, beans, cheese and pies. They were all authentic Mongolian food and they had just been made. Of course, there was a reason why the little girl was so attentive. It was because Lu Qin promised to teach her the song "Beautiful Grassland is My Home" last night, so she couldn't wait. It was really self-inflicted. Lu Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he had to go out to wash up. Fortunately, the breakfast was very good. The milk tea was mellow and fragrant, and the pies were delicious. Lu Qin ate a few of them in one go. After filling his stomach, he felt much more refreshed. After breakfast, Gigantana carried the harp over. Not only did this little Mongolian girl want to learn to sing, but she also wanted to play and sing like Lu Qin. Although she was young, she had already learned to play the harp, and the harp she used was an ancient harp passed down in her family. The little girl was so eager to learn and she liked the song so much. Since Lu Qin had already promised, he certainly wouldn't hide anything. He first copied down the score of the song "Beautiful Grassland is My Home." Then he sat at the entrance of the tent and taught Gigantana to play, carefully guiding her on the singing techniques. What surprised Lu Qin was that Gigantana not only had a beautiful voice, but she also had a very strong learning ability and a very good sense of music, so she was able to learn very quickly. After some guidance, Gigantana held the harp and sang by herself. She was already very good at it. The same song, "Beautiful Grassland is My Home," came out of her mouth. The same tune, but she sang with a different charm and emotion. Although she was still quite inexperienced in singing, she still gave people a very moving feeling. "Beautiful grassland is my home. The water is clear and the grass is beautiful. I love it. The grassland is like a green sea." Unknowingly, there were many herdsmen outside the tent. They were all attracted by Gigantana's singing and even forgot to do their work. When Gigantana finished singing "Beautiful Grassland is My Home," everyone applauded in unison. Gigantana's face was red and she looked very cute. The whole process was recorded by Qin Fei, who was sitting at the side with her phone. She uploaded the video to her blog, added a simple title and posted it. Although the spring hunting ground was in the hinterland of the Mongolian grassland, it had been covered with mobile signal more than 10 years ago. One could still go online through the 4G high-speed network here. When Qin Fei was filming on the grassland, she would check her blog every day and post a few stills for her fans to see. This was also a form of promotion for the TV series. However, this morning's video post was especially different. That was because Qin Fei and Lu Qin's fans had finally found a guy who had been missing for a while. I was wondering where Lu Qin had gone. There hasn't been any news recently. Turns out he went to film a TV series. Does Lu Chen have a role in this TV series? I haven't seen him before. He's probably going to accompany my Fei. My Chin is mighty. They're not showing off their love this time. Who is this Mongolian girl? Could she be Lu Chen's student? She's so pretty, I like her. What's the name of this song? I've never heard it before. It's too good. Truth. Truth too. The fans' curiosity was immediately piqued by the video. Everyone asked if Lu Chen had been accompanying Chen Fei on the set and why he had not been seen for a while. Who was this Mongolian girl? And this song. The Waves blog was in an uproar and the Shuiquan hunting ground was also lively. Director Zhang Ke came over. Seeing this person, Chen Fei was so scared that he quickly put away his phone and quickly got up to say, "Director Zhang? You don't have to worry." Zhang Ke smiled and waved his hands saying, "I'm here to discuss something with Lu Chen. This great director was here for My Beautiful Home on the Prairie. He wanted to get Lu Chen's authorization to use this song as an interlude in Grand Event Song Parade. Of course, the lyrics would have to be slightly modified. In this regard, Lu Chen would certainly not refuse. Any songwriter would not refuse to use their work in a big CCTV drama. This was a good thing to enhance their own style and status. It was usually something they could not ask for. As for the authorization fee, it did not matter at all. Interestingly, Zhang Ke originally planned to let Chen Fei sing this song, but after hearing Jejentana's voice just now, he changed his mind. This song would be sung by this Mongolian girl. Chapter 464. Chen Fei's number of fans on Waves had already exceeded 20 million, and was currently approaching the 30 million mark. The rapid growth of her popularity was entirely due to the success of two popular TV series and her new album. She was now at the height of her popularity in the pop music industry. After entering the film and television industry, she had a smooth road all the way to the top. She had the posture of becoming the queen of film, television, and song. Therefore, although Chen Fei's blog fans were not the most, and there were many more than her fan activity was extremely high. The ratio of clicks, comments, forwards, and likes on a blog post was among the highest. The number of fans was very low, unlike many star artists who operated like zombies. A high number and high activity brought high commercial benefits. If one wanted to make a name for themselves through Chen Fei's blog, they would have to pay at least 1 or 2 million yuan. Even so, apart from formal endorsement products, Chen Fei rarely used blog posts to earn this kind of extra money. She treated Waves' blog as a platform for communication and interaction with her fans, not a tool for commercial profit. It was precisely because of this that fans were also keen to read her blog. Especially recently, Chen Fei would show off her love and abuse her love and single love from time to time on her blog, which always attracted a lot of criticism. Interestingly, among the netizens who read Chen Fei's blog, many were Lu Chen's fans. Through Chen Fei's blog, they could hear Lu Chen's original works from time to time. When this video was posted today, Chen Fei did not think too much about it. She liked Jejentana very much, and then felt that the scene of Lu Chen teaching her to play and sing was very beautiful and touching, so she filmed it and shared it with her fans. Beautiful things naturally had to be seen and experienced by everyone. But inadvertently, Chen Fei made Jejentana popular. As a Mongolian girl, Jejentana's appearance could first make the eyes of the majority of netizens light up. Her pure beauty and cuteness, coupled with very ethnic characteristics of clothing, coupled with a natural voice, instantly conquered countless otakus. Most importantly, she was accompanied by Lu Chen, and Chen Fei filmed her. The combination of the two was very influential. There was no need for deliberate promotion, and it could still produce a sensational effect. In addition, Beautiful Grassland is My Home, a song with distinct ethnic characteristics and theme style, also gave people a refreshing feeling. As a result, this video was widely forwarded on Waves' blog. Many people in the circle saw it and liked it, commented and praised it, and then quickly spread to forums, Tieba and QQ groups. This was the power and charm of the internet. Something that had just happened thousands of miles away could be transmitted in all directions in an instant. It was like a butterfly flapping its wings on the grassland, and it could set off a storm in the distance. In the process, people couldn't help but ask curiously, who is this Mongolian girl? Unfortunately, Chen Fei turned off her phone after posting her blog post. She had a lot of shooting tasks today. She needed to go over in advance to put on makeup and dress up. She had no time to pay attention to the feedback on the blog, so naturally she couldn't answer fans' questions. On the other side, the discussion between Zhang Ku and Lu Chen went very smoothly. Zhang Ku also liked this song Beautiful Grassland Is My Home. The TV series he was shooting was also called Xingshi Long Song. Naturally, he needed a lot of musical works to enrich the theme. Ancient songs and ancient music were certainly indispensable. A song with distinctive ethnic characteristics like Beautiful Grassland Is My Home could also be fully integrated into it. For Lu Chen, this impromptu song was different from his other popular works. Its real value could not and should not be measured by money. In fact, in his current position, money was very meaningless. Therefore, Lu Chen licensed this song to CCTV for a symbolic copyright fee of 1 yuan. This approach was not pioneered by Lu Chen. Of course, Lu Chen could clearly negotiate the licensing fee with CCTV according to his own position. CCTV could definitely pay hundreds of thousands of yuan. But in this way he couldn't expect CCTV to invest resources to promote the creator or content related to the creator. Therefore there was no point in haggling over it. The licensing fee for a song was at most tens of thousands. It was very cost-effective to use it in exchange for a friendly cooperative relationship with CCTV. Zhang Ku contacted the relevant departments of CCTV, and Lu Chen contacted his own studio. With the help of fax, the two sides quickly settled the contract. It only took more than an hour. Zhang Ku was very happy about this. After signing the contract, he shook hands with Lu Chen and said, "Don't worry, I won't bury this work." In director Zhang's view, Lu Chen was really considerate. If he bargained with CCTV for a small profit, it would inevitably take up a lot of his time and energy. That would be very bad for his mood. Since Lu Chen was willing to pay, he must give something in return. This was also the rule of the circle. Lu Chen said with a smile, "Thank you for your kindness, Director Zhang." Zhang Ku waved his hand. He thought for a moment and said, "There's no other way today. Tomorrow I'll rearrange the work and give Qin Fei a day off. You can go out and have fun." It was undoubtedly rare for a great director like Zhang Ku to change the shooting plan for an actor without special circumstances or irresistible reasons. It was also because he appreciated Lu Chen and Qin Fei. In addition, Lu Chen flew over from Hong Kong to visit the set. It was reasonable to give the two young people some time to get together. Lu Chen was naturally grateful. The next day Qin Fei really got the opportunity to take a day off. So Lu Chen borrowed 2 horses from Uncle Begging Face and went to the hunting ground with Qin Fei. They enjoyed the beautiful scenery of the prairie together and were affectionate. It was a pity that good times were always short-lived. On the 3rd day after arriving at the hunting grounds, Lu Chen had no choice but to embark on his return journey. When it was time to say goodbye, Qin Fei was reluctant to leave, while Jejentana's eyes were red from crying. Although they had only known each other for a short time, the Mongolian girl had a special feeling for Lu Chen. She really hoped that Lu Chen could stay here and teach her how to play the piano and sing. Seeing that she was so sad, Lu Chen had to make an appointment with her to come to Beijing when she had a chance. Uncle Begging Face, on behalf of the herdsmen in the hunting ground, sent Lu Chen a hada that represented good wishes. After saying goodbye to his beloved girlfriend and the Mongolian prairie, Lu Chen returned to Beijing on November 7th. Chapter 465. It was already past 11 o'clock in the evening when he returned to his home in Ziqingyuan in the capital. Lu Chen took a hot bath first. After washing away the dust and fatigue, he did not immediately go to bed. Instead, he sat in the study and sorted out his recent work in detail. After the official establishment of the film and television studio in Hong Kong, it would inevitably become normal for him to fly back and forth from Beijing to Hong Kong for a long time to come. If he did not arrange his work in an orderly manner, there would be trouble. At present, the focus of Lu Chen's work was definitely in Hong Kong. The new film A Chinese Ghost Story was about to start shooting. In order to catch up with the list of films supported by the new policy next year, his existence was absolutely indispensable. It was not that Lu Chen was not needed in the capital. On the contrary, many businesses could not do without him, such as advertising endorsements, commercial performances, film and television cooperation. With the hot release of the new album and the great success of the 2 TV series, more and more people came to seek cooperation. Beijing Television, Zhejiang Television, Crown Pictures, SPG, Chinda Brothers and other partners made a lot of money in the TV series, full of romance, and strongly requested to start shooting a new TV series. It didn't matter if Lu Chen went to Hong Kong to shoot a movie. First he had to come up with a new script, set up a crew, recruit actors, rent a set and so on. At that time, as long as Lu Chen found time to shoot it, it would be fine. Their voices were so strong that Lu Chen and the studio could not ignore it. Although it was definitely too late this year, it was not a problem to start shooting the new TV series in the first half of next year. So he had to write the script for the third TV series. According to Lu Chen's plan, this new TV series would be the last one in his trilogy of urban romance TV series. After shooting, the future TV series would be fully focused on the big IP plan. The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, The Legend of the Condor Heroes, The Legend of the Condor Heroes, The Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber. A piece of A4 copy paper was filled with his writing. After several revisions, his thinking gradually became clear. Ring ring. At this time the landline phone on the desk rang. The caller ID showed that it was Lu Shi. Lu Chen answered the phone. Sister? Lu Shi asked, when did you come back? Lu Chen replied, I just came back. I was afraid that you were already asleep, so I didn't call you. You haven't slept yet? How can I sleep? Lu Shi snappily said, you found a good seedling in the Mongolian steppe, why didn't you sign him? Lu Chen was confused. What good seedlings? Lu Shi was exasperated. Jejin Tana? That Mongolian girl is now very popular on the internet. She was signed by Chen Feier's studio. Lu Chen had never expected that Lu Shi would call him in the middle of the night to talk about Jejin Tana. He had no idea that Jejin Tana had become famous on the internet, so he hurriedly asked what was going on. Lu Shi saw that Lu Chen really did not know the truth, so she told him the whole story. It turned out that the morning before yesterday, Chen Feier posted a video on his blog. The content of the video was the scene of Lu Chen teaching Jejin Tana to play and sing, The Beautiful Grassland Is My Home. As soon as the video was posted, it immediately became popular on the internet, and the number of views kept rising. The number of comments and reposts on Chen Feier's blog post had exceeded 1 million today, and it reached the top of the home page of Waves's blog. Then at that time, many netizens wanted to know who this Mongolian girl was. It was only last night that Chen Feier briefly introduced her in a new blog post. Thus, the 14-year-old Jejin Tana became a real internet celebrity overnight. That night, her name was on the hot list of online searches. Then this morning, Chen Feier's studio announced on its official blog that they had officially signed Jejin Tana. So that's how it is. Lu Chen finally understood. He remembered that when they were at the spring hunting ground, Chen Feier had said that Jejin Tana had the potential to become a star. At that time, Lu Chen did not pay much attention to it. He did not expect that Chen Feier would directly sign Jejin Tana. Lu Shi was unhappy. She scolded, you're forgetting about your sister when you have a wife. Wouldn't it be better if we signed Jejin Tana ourselves? We can't possibly rely on you to support the Beijing studio forever, right? The original purpose of the establishment of Lu Chen Studio was to serve Lu Chen alone, but as his fame grew and his career grew, the studio's expansion was inevitable. Now, Beijing Studio had been doing business with the outside world. The recording studio that had been invested in the construction of was not idle, and the daily work schedule was full. But this obviously could not meet Lu Shi's expectations, because in the circle many star studios were developing into entertainment agencies. She also hoped to expand Lu Chen Studio into a real first-class company in the industry. Therefore, the original strategy of not poaching people and not signing people was changing. After more than a year, Lu Shi had treated Lu Chen Studio as her own business. She had long given up the plan to apply for graduate school and devoted herself to work. It could be said that without her efforts, Lu Chen might not have achieved what he had today. Now seeing such a good seedling like Jejin Tana being signed by Chen Feier, even if the other party was her future sister-in-law, Lu Shi was very unhappy. He had a wife and forgot about his sister. Lu Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why don't I talk to Feiers? He believed that as long as he asked, Chen Feier would definitely sign Jejin Tana over. Lu Shi was not fooled. Don't try to shift the blame. Do you think I would fight with your girlfriend? If you have the ability, you can discuss with Feier and merge the two studios into a new company. Then you don't have to separate. Lu Chen suddenly realized that after saying so much, this was probably his sister's real idea. But thinking about it carefully, her proposal was very reliable and operable. It was the so-called strong combination, and the effect was definitely greater than two. The only problem was that the two were not married or engaged yet. Merging the studio was not a small matter. He did not know what Chen Feier thought. Of course, Lu Shi did not really want Lu Chen to make the decision immediately. She just made a good suggestion. In the end, the decision was still made by Lu Chen and Chen Feier. His sister cared about Lu Chen's life and told him about his mother and sister in Binhai. Although there was a lot of chatter, Lu Chen felt warm in his heart. When he ended the call, it was already midnight. He reorganized his thoughts, then made a document on the computer, saved it, and went to rest. Chapter 466. Good morning, Director Lu. The beautiful front desk lady bowed, and her sweet voice made Lu Chen couldn't help but take another look at her. The front desk of Lu Chen's studio had always been Sister Xiao Mei. Not long ago, she was transferred to Lu Shi's assistant, which could be considered a big upgrade. This front desk lady was recently recruited. At that time, Lu Chen just went to Xiangjiang. It was said that the news of recruiting a new front desk lady was released, and there was an endless stream of beautiful women coming to apply for the job. The competition was very fierce. It was a pity that he didn't get to see it, but this carefully selected new employee was undoubtedly very pleasing to the eye. Lu Chen nodded. Morning. Although the studio was founded by him, the position of general manager was always held by Lu Shi. Lu Chen himself was originally the music director, and now he was the art director. He asked one more question. What's your name? The front desk lady smiled sweetly and said, My name is Wang Yali, you can call me Xiao Li. Director Lu, Manager Zhang of Shanghai Publishing House is waiting for you in the reception room. Do you want to meet him in the office, or? Lu Chen said, I'll go see him directly. Shanghai Publishing House was one of the top 10 private publishing houses in the country. Its headquarters was located in Beijing. When Lu Chen published the novel Autumn in My Heart, this publishing house bought the copyright with a high price of 15% plus 500,000 yuan. Later, the novel version of Full House of Romance was also cooperated with Shanghai Publishing House. So far, the total sales of these two novels by Lu Chen had exceeded 5 million. As a work adapted from a film and TV series, the results were very dazzling. Putting aside the influence of the work itself, Shanghai Publishing House also contributed a lot. Therefore, in the list of partners of Lu Chen's studio, Shanghai Publishing House was the first. Manager Zhang of Shanghai Publishing House, Zhang Yaoqing and Lu Chen knew each other. This deputy general manager cum chief editor personally ran to the studio to wait for Lu Chen. Of course, Lu Chen had to personally come out to receive him. Manager Zhang, long time no see. In the reception room, Lu Chen once again saw Zhang Yaoqing, a middle-aged man with a refined temperament. Zhang Yaoqing shook hands with Lu Chen and said with a smile, Director Lu, you are a busy man. It's not easy to find you. Lu Chen was ashamed. Recently, I have been preparing to shoot a movie in Xiangjiang. I really can't be here. Zhang Yaoqing said, This time, let me directly sign the contract. This time, let's just sign the contract. At this time, Zhang Yaoqing introduced the young woman he brought with him to Lu Chen. This is Zhou Lu, my assistant editor. She is in charge of editing The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. Lu Chen nodded to the other party and said with a smile, Hello. Li. Zhou Lu was in her 20s. She looked ordinary and wore thick glasses. Facing Lu Chen, she was obviously a little flustered. She wanted to reach out but retracted her hand. Her face was flushed. Lu Chen said with a smile, Thank you for your hard work. Let's talk in the office. Let's talk in the office. Of course, Zhang Yaoqing had no objections. He silently glared at Zhou Lu, a little exasperated at her for failing to meet his expectations. He brought his niece here today because he wanted her to see the world, get to know Lu Chen, a promising young man, and expand her horizons and contacts. He didn't expect Zhou Lu to be so bad. She didn't have the confidence she usually had at work. It could only be said that Lu Chen's charm was too great, or his halo was too dazzling. Zhou Lu, a young girl, couldn't keep calm. After sitting in Lu Chen's office, Zhou Lu finally reacted. She took out a thick stack of books from her briefcase. There were 5 books in total and she put them in front of Lu Chen. Zhang Yaoqing explained, This is a sample book specially made by our publishing house. The title was written by the famous calligrapher Mr. Fu Guangyuan. Please review it, Director Lu. Lu Chen picked up the book on the top and looked at it carefully. Although it was just a sample book, it was basically not much different from an official published book. The color laser-printed cover was very high resolution. The 4 big black characters, the smiling, the proud wanderer, were bold and powerful, showing the extraordinary skills of the writer. The strokes of the pen had an unrestrained chivalrous spirit. Lu Chen was very satisfied. The smiling, the proud wanderer was the test of Lu Chen's big IP plan. In May and June of this year, he published the online version on Waves Reading under the pen name, Remembering the Present and the Past. At the beginning, the performance of the smiling, the proud wanderer was terrible. There were very few clicks, favorites and comments. was very bad. But when Lu Qin continued to update the book to more than 200,000 words, the performance of the book improved greatly. More and more readers liked the book, and it was also invited to sign a contract with the book website. Of course, it was impossible for Lu Qin to sign a contract with Waves Reading. Later on he slowed down the speed of updating the book. When the book reached 500,000 words he stopped updating and made a publication announcement. At this time the number of favorites of the Smiling, the Proud Wanderer on Waves Reading had exceeded 30,000. Lu Qin was not in a hurry for the operation of this new martial arts novel. Unlike movies or TV shows, a good book's reputation needed time to be accumulated and brewed. Just like wine in the cellar, the longer it was kept, the more fragrant it would be. Now that it was almost ready, Lu Qin would officially publish it and push it to the market. Then he would properly operate it to pave the way for a series of works such as The Legend of the Condor Heroes and Demigods and Semidevils in the future. There were 5 volumes of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer with about 1,000,000 words. The design and binding of the book were antique, and the layout of the text was neat. Undoubtedly, Shanghai Publishing House had put a lot of effort into it. When Lu Qin was reviewing the sample book, Zhang Yaoqing was not calm. When Lu Qin's studio brought the manuscript over, the publishing house had a dispute on the specific terms of the contract, because the author of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer was not famous in the martial arts circle and had no previous works. There was definitely a risk in publishing such a book. It was easy to lose a lot of money if the royalty and the guarantee were involved. But after Zhang Yaoqing read The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer and knew the feedback of the readers who read this book on Waves Reading, he resolutely decided to sign the contract according to the highest level of treatment for authors. This is not only the need to continue the good cooperation with Lu Qin's studio, but more importantly, Zhang Yaoqing has a strong interest in this martial arts novel. His professional sensitivity tells him that in the traditional book reading market, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer definitely has a place. Therefore, after knowing that Lu Qin had come back from Hong Kong, he immediately went to visit him and sent the sample book that he had carefully prepared, to ensure that he could get the publishing contract. Zhang Yaoqing believed that his sincerity was enough to get this cooperation. And in fact he was not disappointed. Chapter 467. Happy Cooperation. In the meeting room, Zhang Yaoqing, the Deputy General Manager of Shanghai Publishing House, and Lu Shi, the General Manager of Lu Qin's studio, signed the publishing contract for The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer. Zhang Yaoqing shook hands with Lu Shi and Lu Qin with a big smile on his face, and said sincerely, "Don't worry, we Shanghai Publishing House will devote all our resources to the promotion of this novel, and make The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer a hit in the book market at the end of the year." There were 5 volumes of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer with 1,000,000 words. According to the publishing contract signed by both parties, the first print run would be 100,000 copies of the hardcover edition, and 200,000 copies of the paperback edition. The total first print run would reach 1.5 million copies. For a novel written by a newcomer, and it was not a traditional best-selling novel, the first print run of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer was undoubtedly too large. If it did not sell well, Shanghai Publishing House would suffer a great loss. As the leader of this publishing cooperation, Zhang Yaoqing also bore a considerable risk. To some extent, he was betting on his career and reputation in the circle. Of course, Zhang Yaoqing would not fight a battle he was not sure of. In addition to his confidence in the quality of the book, he knew the popularity of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer on the internet, and the promotion of Shanghai Publishing House, Lu Qin and Qin Fei, studios. The real risk was not that big. The 2 big names had more than 50 million fans on Waves blog. Even with a discount, the sales of 300,000 copies was not a big deal. The serious thing was that if The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer became a hit under Zhang Yaoqing's leadership and created a new best-selling novel genre, then his reputation and status in the circle would definitely be enhanced big. Lu Shi smiled and said, "Thank you, General Manager Zhang." "You're welcome," Zhang Yaoqing asked tentatively. "To be honest, I admire the author of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer very much. He must not be an ordinary person to be able to write such a wonderful novel. Can you invite him over for dinner?" In this publishing contract, Lu Qin Studio signed the contract as the agent of the author, and the author himself did not appear. Zhang Yaoqing did not find any information about Remembering Now and Ancient on the internet. This made him very curious and he wanted to take this opportunity to get to know him. If The Smiling, Proud Wanderer really sells well, then it will be easy to talk about the follow-up works. Although Lu Qin Studio is the sole agent of the author, it also has to consider the author's preference, right? Zhang Yaoqing didn't mean anything else. It was nothing more than the professional experience of a veteran. Lu Qin and Lu Shi looked at each other, and the latter said with a smile, "I'm sorry, Mr. Zhang. This author doesn't like to socialize and he has transferred all the copyrights to our studio, so, if there's a chance to get the author's consent in the future, then we can arrange it." While explaining, Lu Shi quietly rolled her eyes at Lu Qin. It was all his mysterious tricks. In fact, Lu Shi could also understand Lu Qin's scruples. He was already so good at writing songs and singing, and he was also a good screenwriter and actor. If he published a novel and became a real best-selling author, it would make people speechless. Sometimes Lu Shi couldn't figure out how many things were hidden in her brother's head. She had never seen him have so many talents before, and they suddenly burst out. It was not a bad thing to keep a low profile. Zhang Yaoqing regretted, "That's a pity." He didn't think that Lu Shi was deliberately perfunctory to prevent him from contacting the author, because with the strength and status of Lu Qin's studio now, there was no need to play this kind of trick. Moreover, many talented writers did not like to socialize. Often, only by devoting themselves wholeheartedly to writing could they create truly outstanding and classic works. After seeing Zhang Yaoqing and Lu Shi off, Lu Shi said to Lu Qin, "Xiaochu and others are waiting in the studio." Lu Qin couldn't help patting his head. "They're here too?" Lu Shi said with a smile, "You are now a big shot in the circle and people are watching your every move. So as soon as you came back, everyone came to your door. I think we need to give you another assistant." Lu Qin couldn't help laughing, shook his head and said, "I'm going to the recording studio." In the studio's recording studio, Lu Qin met the three beautiful girls of MSN again. The MSN girl group under Flying Stone Records has now become one of the most popular girl groups in the domestic pop music world. Its debut album Not Yet Lovers has now won double platinum. The number of fans on Wave's blog has exceeded 10 million. Announcements, commercial performances and endorsements are all over the place. Flying Stone Records did not forget the great contributor behind the popularity of MSN. They have always maintained a good cooperative relationship with Lu Qin's studio. They even outsourced part of the recording studio business to the studio, so that the latter's studio, which originally had no profit plan, actually made a lot of money. Of course, there was no free lunch in the world. Good cooperation was due to common interests. Last month, Flying Stone Records sent an invitation to Lu Qin's studio for 3 works, which were still tailor-made for MSN. In the publicity of Flying Stone Records and MSN's official blog, the contract amount was as high as 5 million yuan, which definitely created a new record in the industry and made many people in the circle dumbfounded. But the problem is that at present the price of Lu Qin's songs is 1 million per song. Not everyone can get works from him at this price, and only a partner like Flying Stone Records can get the moonlight first. Tien. The pavilion closest to the water is the pavilion closest to the water. Brother Lu Qin. Seeing Lu Qin appear, Mu Xiaochu, who was chatting with Wang Hui and others in the monitoring room, quickly greeted him in surprise. Her pretty little face smiled like a flower, with joy from the bottom of her heart. Speaking of which, the two hadn't seen each other for a while. "Hello, Teacher Lu." "Good morning, Teacher Lu." The other 2 members of MSN, Su Jiejia and Ning Tian, also respectfully got up and said hello. The 2 of them addressed Lu Qin differently from Mu Xiaochu, because the latter had a better relationship with Lu Qin, and in the fan circle of both sides, fans had always treated Mu Xiaochu as Lu Qin's sister. Among the 3 members of MSN, Mu Xiaochu had the most fans. Her personal fans on Wave's blog were more than Su Jiejia and Ning Tian combined. Lu Qin said with a smile, "Hello." The 3 beautiful girls surrounded Lu Qin like stars surrounding the moon. Mu Xiaochu asked curiously, "Brother Lu Qin, is the Mongolian steppe fun? I've seen the photos that Sister Fei sent me. The scenery there is so beautiful." Lu Qin nodded and said, "It's fun. I'll take you with me next time." Mu Xiaochu smiled and said, "That's great. You can't go back on your word." Lu Qin smiled and said, "Do you want a pinky swear?" Su Jiejia and Ning Tian looked at each other and saw envy in each other's eyes. Chapter 468. Lu Qin and Mu Xiaochu met each other because they participated in Singing China. At that time both of them were grassroots. One was a Beijing drifter struggling in Beijing, and the other was a freshman with no fame, background and connections. In the end, both of them were ranked among the top 10 singers in the country at the same time. Many of Lu Qin's fans, especially the members of Lu Jiejun, knew and liked the girl who often appeared around Lu Qin at that time. Everyone affectionately called her Little Sister Xiaochu. Later, when Lu Qin and Qin Fei fell in love, it did not affect the relationship between the two. Mu Xiaochu could big intimacy with Lu Qin, and even if they were photographed by reporters, they did not have to worry about being exposed to gossip. And it was precisely this relationship that made MSN the object of envy and jealousy of countless artists struggling at the bottom. In the circle, Lu Qin has the nickname Golden Touch. It is said that any singer, as long as he gives guidance, will be able to become famous and popular. His works are a guarantee of sales. But nowadays, it is basically impossible for ordinary singers and artists to get the guidance of Lu Qin. Even if they are willing to pay an amazing price, they may not have the opportunity to squeeze into the list of song invitations. Therefore, Su Jiejia and Ning Tian are very envious of the friendship between Mu Xiaochu and Lu Qin, but they are absolutely not jealous. Because they know very well that the success of MSN is inseparable from Lu Qin, and it is also inseparable from Mu Xiaochu. You try recording it first and let me listen to it. Flying Stone Records has its own recording studio, and has a number of experienced and well-known recording artists and a large number of professional talents in the industry, but MSN's new songs are still recorded in Lu Qin's studio. On the one hand, it is convenient for Lu Qin to give guidance on the spot, on the other hand, it also represents the attitude of Flying Stone Records. Not only that, Flying Stone Records also sent a recording artist to join Lu Qin's studio to help Wang Hui, who was already too busy to breathe, manage the recording studio. Otherwise, a lot of work would not be completed in time. The recording artist's surname was Hao. He was in his 30s, tall and thin with long hair. He was a little arrogant, but in front of Lu Qin he was still very respectful, not daring to put on any airs. MSN's new song was recorded by him. The three girls entered the recording studio one by one and put on huge monitoring headphones. After brewing for a moment, the prelude music quietly sounded in the monitoring room through the high-quality sound system. Mu Xiaochu, Su Jiejia, and Ning Tian looked very serious as they sang along with the music. Because we cannot fly. So the voyage of happiness is long, it was inevitable that there would be storms lying in ambush ahead. Want to try to separate our clasped hands? If you're not afraid, I won't panic if you don't panic. When we crossed the ocean of love, he would rejoice that he didn't give up in the end. On the bustling shore, the tears along the way, they were all buried as treasures. The name of this song was Ocean of Love. It was the theme song tailored by Lu Qin for MSN's second album. It was also the most important of the three works. Different from the immaturity of Not Yet Lovers, Ocean of Love tended to be mature in style. There was a strong determination and desire for love in the sadness, which increased the difficulty of singing a lot. Compared with the recording of Not Yet Lovers, the growth of NSN was visible. They had a very tacit understanding. A glance was enough to communicate a lot of information. Their grasp of the emotion of the work was more in place, which made people feel enjoyment when listening. The voices of the three girls were all excellent, but they were by no means the same. Mu Xiaochu's sweetness, Su Jiejia's mellowness and Ning Tian's clarity formed the unique charm of this girl group. This kind of charm was vividly displayed through the song, Ocean of Love. The turbulent ocean of love, there are too many sad waves, let's not be like that, let's not regret, let's cross the ocean together, let's go to the other side together. When it came to the climax of the chorus, the transformation of the three people's aura and the seamless connection were perfect. It was impossible to achieve this level without a long time of practice. Although it was the first audition today, the effect had reached the level of official recording. Lu Qin, who was listening in the monitoring room, showed a knowing smile. They were giving him a surprise. The music score of this song was composed by Lu Qin for MSN when he first arrived in Hong Kong. After more than half a month, they handed in a perfect answer sheet. There must be the supervision and guidance of professionals and Flying Stone Records, and the efforts of the three girls were indispensable. Tian, Flying Stone Records, whether it was being a person or singing, whether they put their heart into it or not, it was completely different. This effort alone was worthy of praise. After the song Ocean of Love was sung, the three girls opened their eyes at the same time. Applause rang out in the monitoring room. They saw Lu Qin and the recorder as well as several other staff of the recording studio, applauding through the thick glass. They looked at each other and smiled, with joy from the bottom of their hearts on their faces. Singing a good song can not only bring pleasure to the listeners, but it is also a very happy and fulfilling thing for the singer. Although they sang it very well for the first time according to the requirements of the procedure, Mu Xiaochu and others still recorded it several times. During this period, Lu Chen also pointed out some details to make the title song perfect. Tian, the title song is very beautiful. By the time everyone came out of the recording studio, it was already noon. Mu Xiaochu took Lu Chen's arm and said, "Brother Lu Chen, let's have lunch together, okay?" Lu Chen said with a smile, "Are you treating?" The three girls couldn't have asked for more and they nodded quickly. Lu Chen said sternly, "You can treat us but you must let me pay, otherwise I won't go." Su Jiejia and Ning Tian were stunned. Only Mu Xiaochu giggled and said, "Then we'll treat you to a big meal." Lu Chen was joking. They chatted and laughed, and they had lunch in a nearby restaurant. In the afternoon they continued to record the other two songs. In the evening the official blogs of Lu Chen Studio and Qin Fei Studio released the same blog post at 8 o'clock sharp. The basic content of the blog post was that the two studios signed the copyright of the novel, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer by the author Yi Jin-gu. It would be officially published this month, and it was expected to be filmed in the second half of next year. It was the first time that the two studios released the same blog post at the same time, and the content involved the new TV series shooting plan. Naturally, it inevitably attracted the attention of countless fans and people in the industry. Lu Chen and Qin Fei's new TV series was actually a martial arts film, which surprised many people. In turn, it also aroused a strong interest in The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. What kind of martial arts book could make the two TV stars who had created domestic and foreign ratings records recommend it so grandly? For a time on major search engines, the search volume of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer suddenly skyrocketed. Note, Ocean of Love lyricist, Sher Rinching/composer, Heiko Schmidt, Roberto Rosen, Jade Violone. Chapter 469. The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer was first published on Wave's literature website in May of this year. In the absence of a contract or recommendation, it gradually accumulated considerable popularity by relying on the word of mouth of readers. Many readers spontaneously promoted this rare martial arts book in forums and QQ groups. The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer fans have set up more than a dozen groups, which has a certain influence in the niche category of online literature. But this book is obviously a physical book, which is very different from the current mainstream novels on the internet. Therefore, the search volume on the internet is not high, and it is in a state of tepid popularity. As of October, the index of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer on the search list of the largest domestic search engine, Flash Search, is more than 20,000, ranking very low in the same type of search, far from the top 100. However, when Lu Chen and Qin Fei Studio announced that they had signed the copyright of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer, and prepared to shoot a TV series next year, this long martial arts novel instantly became popular on the internet. By 11 o'clock in the evening, the keywords of Flash Search had been searched more than 5 million times, and soon it was on the hot search list on the homepage of Flash Search. And these search traffic, most of it was directed to Wave's literature. In the face of the surging IP calls, the website of Wave's literature felt that it was a dog's day. Of course, a large increase in traffic is a good thing. At present, the competition in domestic online literature is very fierce. The popularity of IP has created one legend after another. The value of popular and best-selling online novels is getting higher and higher. In order to win this lucrative market, the website is racking its brains to promote and market. In the absence of any advanced preparation, so many netizens were attracted. It was like a big pie falling from the sky and it felt a little incredible. But the biggest problem is that although The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer was first published on Wave's literature, it has not been signed by the website. All of its copyright has always been firmly in the hands of the author. The author can sell the copyright to whoever he wants. Wave's literature can only look at it and drool, but it can't get any benefits. On the other hand, if this book has been signed to Wave's literature, and Lu Chen and Qin Fei Studio want to buy the copyright, it is impossible without a lot of money. Who doesn't know the ability of these two to make TV series? Physical publishing, film and television adaptation, animation, games and movies. Looking at a big piece of fat meat in front of their eyes, but they can only touch the smell of oil, how can they not be depressed? The website management is depressed, and they have to vent their anger on the staff below them. The responsible editor and the chief editor have to suffer. How can a work that Lu Chen and Qin Fei be bad? Moreover, the performance of this book on the website itself was very good. He should have paid a price to buy it out in the first place. He wouldn't have missed such a good opportunity. It should be paid to buy it at the Wave's literature book. In fact, the editor was really wronged. When Lu Qin released The Smiling, Proud Wanderer on Inspur Books, the purpose was only to test the response of readers, and he never thought of giving up the publishing rights. Lu Qin didn't care about the money from the subscription fee. The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was the test of his Wuxia IP plan. All the copyrights should be firmly in his hands. How could the editor and chief editor of Waves Reading not feel wronged? It was a pity that even they didn't know the details. Because of them, they really missed a popular IP novel. Especially on the second day, the number of collections of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer on Waves surged from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. They all regretted that they had given away the book to someone else. Of course, reading on Waves was not without its benefits. At least there were many fans who were attracted by its fame. Most of the readers of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer were new users. The positive benefits brought to the website could not be underestimated. The online version of this book had a word count of 500,000, which was equivalent to 2.5 volumes of content. All of it was free to read, so it was naturally very attractive to readers. It was the first time that The Smiling, the proud martial artist appeared in the eyes of the public. As time went by, its reputation would spread more and more. At the same time, the physical book of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer was about to go on sale. With enough time to brew, the TV series scheduled to start shooting next year was bound to attract a lot of attention. This was the prelude to Lu Chen's great Wuxia IP plan. Are you satisfied now? On the second day after the announcement, Qin Fei talked to Lu Qin on the phone. She laughed and said, "You won't blame me for stealing Sister Jejentana's signature, right?" Lu Qin smiled bitterly and said, "I didn't blame you in the first place. I heard that Sister Lu she has a problem with that." Qin Fei was well informed. She explained, "Actually, it was my fault. I didn't expect that posting the video of you and Jejentana on the blog would cause such a big reaction. I was afraid that it would affect her life, so I signed Jejentana directly." Because of the video recorded by Qin Fei, Jejentana unexpectedly became an internet celebrity. In today's entertainment industry, she was bound to become a money tree in the eyes of some people. Even if she was in the boundless Mongolian grassland, people would still find her. With Jejentana's innocence and kindness, it was too easy for her to lose herself in the strange and dazzling entertainment industry. Qin Fei didn't want to ruin this beautiful and lovely Mongolian girl because of a moment of quickness, so she signed her to her own studio to prevent other people from thinking about it. In fact, the contract Qin Fei signed with Jejentana was very loose. If Jejentana didn't want to, she could still live a carefree life on the grassland. If she wanted to see how wonderful the outside world was and wanted to appear on TV, then Qin Fei's network was enough to protect her, so that she didn't need to contact the dark side of the circle. This was Qin Fei's responsibility and Jejentana's luck. Understanding Qin Fei's good intentions, Lu Qin was very touched. His girlfriend had a gentle and delicate heart, which was also his luck. "Actually, sister, I know." Qin Fei smiled and interrupted his explanation. "Sister Lu she definitely isn't angry and I have already called her," so the studio issued an announcement at the same time. Lu Qin was convinced. "You guys colluded?" Qin Fei smiled. "You are so busy with work so you don't need to manage a lot of things yourself. Just take control of the overall situation. By the way, I have good news for you." Lu Chen's attention was immediately diverted. "What good news?" Chapter 470. The good news that Qin Fei mentioned was related to the Global Chinese Original Songs Chart, which would be held in Beijing on December 31st this year. Before 2016, the domestic pop music festival was mainly composed of 3 major music charts. They were the Asian Chinese Gold Songs Chart, the Chinese Original Music Chart, and the Chinese Music Chart. Among them, the first 2 were more authoritative and influential. It was the Asian Chinese Original Songs Chart and the Chinese Music Chart that had been reorganized and merged. It could be said that it was a powerful combination. The Global Chinese Original Songs Chart after the merger of the 2 festivals was undoubtedly the most important music award in the Chinese pop music industry. It directly crushed the Chinese Music Chart, which was led by Shonan TV. This year was the first year of the Global Chinese Original Songs Chart, which had a special meaning. Most of the people in the circle had already grasped the basic information about this music festival that was highly anticipated. For example, the Chinese Original Songs Chart had a total of 24 awards, including Best Male and Female Singer, Best Album, Best Lyrics, Best Composition, Best Newcomer, Best Orchestra, Best New Group, Best MV, etc. The time was fixed on the last day of each year, and the venue was the National Grand Theater. Whether it was the scale or the layout, it had reached the national level. It was bound to have an impact on the Chinese circle in Asia and even the world. Any aspiring musician wouldn't want to miss such a grand music event. Of course, it was very difficult to get a place in it. According to the insider information that Chen Feier got, Lu Chen had already received many nominations and was just waiting to be announced. According to the rules of the Global Chinese Original Songs chart, each award could not be more than 5 nominations, and only one could win. There would not be a situation where there were double yokes or multiple yokes. The organizing committee of the Golden Songs chart had undoubtedly learned a lesson from other awards. In the past, in many awards in the film and music industry, the situation of dividing the pork was quite serious. It was very common for 2 best actors or best actresses to appear at a film festival at the same time. There were even 3 of them on the same stage, which was very embarrassing. This kind of awards based on seniority was criticized by the audience, which led to the value and credibility of the awards being reduced big. As a result, in the end, some winners refused to accept the awards. There could only be one winner for each of the major awards on the Golden Melody chart. Chen Feier had been in the industry for more than 10 years. Her connections in the circle were not something that Lu Chen could compare with. Therefore, before Lu Chen got the news, she already knew a lot of inside information. You will definitely be nominated for Best Male Singer, Best Album, Best Lyrics and Best Composition. Chen Feier said, I'm not sure about the others, but with these 4 nominations it's enough. Although it was just a nomination, it was already very valuable for such a heavyweight award as the Global Chinese Original Songs chart. It should be noted that the Golden Songs chart was aimed at the Chinese pop music world all over the world, including musicians from Taiwan, Hong Kong and Macau. The competition for the nomination was bound to be fierce. 4 heavyweight nominations, those were the 4 cornerstones of Lu Chen in the circle. It could be said to be very heavy. And there might be more than 4 nominations. Lu Chen said with a smile, it's just a nomination. Maybe I won't even get an award in the end. Chen Feier said, modesty is a good virtue, but excessive modesty is hypocrisy. If you can't even get an award, then the Golden Melody chart doesn't live up to its name. She said it very seriously. She was not joking but really thought so. Over the past year, Lu Chen's contribution and efforts in pop music were obvious to all. He stirred up the music world with his own strength and made the domestic original works shine again. It was impossible for the members of the Golden Melody chart to not see it, or pretend not to see it. Otherwise, how could the credibility of this music festival be guaranteed? Lu Chen said with a smile, it would be good if you were a judge. By the way, how many nominations do you have? Not to mention other things, the Best Female Singer and Best Album, if Chen Feier and her Woman Flower, which had sold 5 million copies, were absolutely unscientific. Chen Feier said, I'm sure I have less than you. We should be competitors for the best album. As long as the Golden Melody chart knew a little about marketing and publicity, the Golden Melody chart committee would definitely not let go of this gimmick that could be used for hype. Lu Chen said, bring it on. Chen Feier laughed. I'm not afraid of you. Whoever loses will have to wash the dishes at home in the future. Lu Chen agreed resolutely, let's do it. The 2 of them laughed at the same time. Although they were thousands of kilometers apart, their hearts were still full of sweetness and warmth. Chen Feier said, I miss you. Lu Chen comforted her, let's have a holiday during the new year. I'll take you to Bali for a few days. Chen Feier was happy. Then I'll wait for the new year. She was overjoyed like a little girl who had got her favorite toy. She was extremely happy. Time passed quietly as they spoke words of love. On November 12th, the 5th day after Lu Chen returned to Beijing, the Global Chinese Top Songs Chart Committee announced the list of nominees and judges on its official website at the same time, opening the prelude to the annual music festival. Chen Feier's source was very accurate. Lu Chen was nominated for a total of 4 heavyweight awards: Best Male Singer, Best Album, Best Lyrics and Best Composition. In addition, he was nominated for Best Producer and Media Recommendation. As for Chen Feier herself, she was nominated for Best Female Singer, Best Album, Best Stage Performance and Media Recommendation respectively. In the Best Album and Media Recommendation Awards, the 2 of them became competitors. Although such a situation was normal, it still showed people the intention of the organizing committee, especially on the nomination list. The 2 of them were next to each other, which was particularly eye-catching. The nomination list of the Top Songs chart quickly spread on the internet. Lu Chen Studio, Chen Feier Studio, and the official accounts of their fan support groups all forwarded it, immediately causing a sensation in their fan groups. Ah, my Chen and my Fei are going to PK. Everyone, who do you think will win? In my opinion, the best album should be jointly owned by two people to be perfect. Don't think about it. There's no double yoke in the top songs chart. Woman Flower and The Ordinary Road, which album should I support? I support both albums. I'm happy who wins. Happy +1. It was just that the fans of both sides were complacent about the best album being in the bag, which made the fans of the other nominated albums feel dissatisfied. In blogs, forums, Tieba, and QQ groups, the flames of war were everywhere. As for who won and who lost, it would be revealed at the end of next month. Chapter 471. In the Borui Club in the capital. In the ring, Li Mushi, who was wearing a set of black kung fu, was launching a storm-like attack on her opponent. Front kick, whip kick, side kick, knee strike, straight punch, horizontal elbow. Her attacks were so intertwined that people couldn't even breathe. She was like a beautiful black female leopard, who was going to tear her prey to pieces on this small stage. There were a lot of people around the ring. They were all coaches and employees of the club. Everyone was cheering for Li Mushi, which made her attacks more and more powerful. However, Li Mushi's opponent was not weak. On the contrary, he was stronger. In the face of the former's fierce attacks, he dealt with them with ease. He dodged sideways, raised his arms to block, and raised his legs to protect himself. Although he retreated step by step, his defense was impeccable, so that Li Mushi's strength was gradually exhausted in the repeated attacks. Bang! Li Mushi's side spin kick was once again blocked by Lu Chen's arm. When she jumped down, her left leg, which supported her body, obviously bent down. She staggered and almost fell on the ring. She was exhausted. Lu Chen took 2 steps back and did not take the opportunity to fight back. He looked at Li Mushi with a smile. Li Mushi's chest rose and fell violently a few times. She stared at Lu Chen with shame and annoyance. Finally, she was discouraged and said, "I don't want to fight with you. It's boring to fight with you. You are so soft and weak." Lu Chen smiled and said nothing. Li Mushi did not give up. "You are so busy now. You have to run to Hong Kong and the Mongolian prairie. How do you keep your kung fu?" Li Mushi was really not convinced. Since she lost to Lu Chen in the ring half a year ago, she specially hired a master in kickboxing and spent a lot of time practicing hard. She was confident that her strength had improved a bit. So this time, when she knew that Lu Chen had returned to the capital, she dragged Lu Chen to the Borui Club to fight again. Unexpectedly this time, Lu Chen completely relied on blocking and parrying, which made her lose confidence. Lu Chen thought about it and said, "I'm very talented." The martial arts that Lu Chen mastered came from Mo Rant's memories, and he was very talented in this aspect. After more than a year of persistent training, it would not be a problem for him to reach Mo Rant's peak strength. Most importantly, Lu Chen liked the feeling of practicing martial arts very much. Practicing martial arts made him stronger and more energetic, and filled him with confidence and fighting spirit. Therefore, no matter how busy he was at work, Lu Chen would never forget to take time to maintain his condition. Li Mushi was improving, but he didn't regress. Instead, he became stronger. Li Mushi couldn't help but roll her eyes at Lu Chen's answer. She unwillingly licked her lips and hatefully said, "Don't be too proud. I'll definitely beat you next time." She had flaming red lips, pearly white teeth, and a fragrant tongue. There was a hint of wild danger in her beauty. That kind of unique charm made Lu Chen's heart beat faster. He smiled and cupped his fists at Li Mushi. "Anytime." Under the ring, Wan Yong, the coach of the Borui Club, secretly gave Lu Chen a thumbs up. Lu Chen blinked and smiled. After leaving the ring, they went to the locker room to take a shower and change their clothes. The two sat down in the lounge by the window. The club's waiter served coffee and tea. Li Mushi, who had dressed up again, seemed to be a different person. A light-colored office lady suit restored her usual elegance and beauty, without the slightest aggressive aura. But Lu Chen knew that she was just temporarily restraining her claws and teeth. "Lu Chen, do you have any good suggestions for the future development of our company?" Li Mushi took a sip of coffee, put down the cup, and asked, "I invited you here this time to listen to your ideas. Now the company's expansion has encountered great resistance." Mukin Crowdfunding Network Company Limited was officially established in September last year. The crowdfunding website was launched in the same month, and it obtained a commercial creative copyright protection certificate, enjoying a 1-year legal protection. As the founder of the crowdfunding website, Lu Chen has sold his equity in the crowdfunding website twice, and finally retained only 10% of the non-dilutable founders' shares, and basically withdrew from the operation of the crowdfunding website. Over the past year, as a new online business model, under the management of Li Mushi, relying on the resources and contacts of the Li family, the crowdfunding website has developed rapidly, the volume of business has risen steadily, and profits have been realized early. At present, there are hundreds of employees under Mukin crowdfunding, and at the same time, the number of online crowdfunding projects has exceeded 500 at most. The total amount of crowdfunding funds has reached an astonishing level. The profit model of the crowdfunding website is not complicated, and the website is quite simple. To be able to create such good results in a short period of time, commercial creativity is undoubtedly the key. And creativity is the easiest to imitate and learn. Many internet and financial tycoons have long been eyeing this attractive cake. Therefore, when the copyright protection of the crowdfunding website expired, more than a dozen similar websites were launched simultaneously in China, and the competition has become extremely fierce. In this way, Li Mushi was under a lot of pressure. It should be known that among her opponents, there were several giants with powerful strength, strong backgrounds, and abundant funds. Since they had their eyes on this piece, they would not be satisfied until they got a piece of meat. Although Li Mushi had expected such a situation, she did not expect the competitors to be so fierce. The market that originally belonged to her 100% was suddenly eroded by a lot. It would be a lie to say that she was not worried. Today she pulled Lu Qin over and had a fight with Lu Qin first. In fact, she also took this opportunity to vent the negative emotions accumulated in her heart, and then sought guidance from Lu Qin. I know you must have a way. At present, of course, the market share of the crowdfunding website is still the first, and its market share has left the latecomers far behind. However, be prepared for danger in times of peace. Li Mushi has never thought of lying down and living on her old capital. She is also ready to put the crowdfunding website on the growth enterprise market. The crowdfunding website was founded by you. You don't want your painstaking efforts to be destroyed, do you? Don't forget, you are a shareholder of the crowdfunding website. Once it goes public, first with reason, then with emotion, and then with profit. In order to dig some information from Lu Qin, Li Mushi has put in a lot of effort. Lu Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He quickly said, "Okay, I know. I'll prepare the information for you in the next 2 days." Going back and looking through the memories in the dream world should provide a lot of useful information. Of course, whether the crowdfunding website can defeat many powerful competitors mainly depends on Li Mushi's own ability. Li Mushi was finally satisfied. That's more like it. She suddenly thought of something important. The team that you've trained in our club, are you going to put them to use? Lu Qin was stunned. Chapter 472. The Borui Club was an industry of the Li family in Beijing. Its original intention was to train and cultivate security talents. The club had a gym, a swimming pool, a fighting hall, an indoor shooting range, and so on. The facilities were complete and first class. Most of the coaches and staff in the club were retired from the army. In addition to meeting the needs of the Li family, the trained security guards also took on some tasks, so there were usually a lot of people staying in the club. Last year, Lu Qin was taken to the Borui Club by Li Mushi. The special environment and atmosphere here gave him an idea and he put it into practice. That was, Lu Qin recruited a team from the Borui Club and trained them according to his own intentions. This team was not used as bodyguards for Lu Qin. He didn't have such a big show and didn't need it. It was used to shoot a martial arts action film. The martial arts action film that Lu Qin wanted to shoot came from the memory of the dream world. In the dream world, there had been countless wonderful and classic martial arts and action films at home and abroad, which were treasures that made people's blood boil. Lu Qin's big IP plan was closely related to these memories, but he wanted to reproduce the classics in the dream world. In reality, there were no other conditions, but it was difficult to find suitable martial arts action film actors. In Lu Qin's own world, martial arts films had appeared in both Xiangjiang and China, but it was like a flash in the pan, and did not cause much of a storm before disappearing. Now, what was popular were the mythical fantasy dramas with special effects flying everywhere. As for action films, the situation was better than martial arts films, but they also belonged to the ranks of niche films. In today's domestic and foreign film market, drama films adapted from popular novels, superhero films, and science fiction and magic films were the mainstream. The market share in this area was huge. A blockbuster could easily earn tens or even billions of yuan at the box office, so the competition was naturally extremely fierce. Basically, it was controlled by the giants in the industry. Therefore, if Lu Qin wanted to get a share of the film market, and he had to control his own destiny. He could only find another way. He chose to start in Hong Kong because he had chosen a suitable opportunity, and the training of people with the help of the Wuxia Club was a plan in advance. There were a total of 12 members in this team. The usual training expenses and salary were all borne by Lu Chen himself. After a year of preparation, it was about time for them to show their usefulness. It was Lu Chen's Lu family squad. Lu Chen didn't expect Li Mushi to bring it up. He asked curiously, "How did you know? Don't treat me like an idiot." Li Mushi glared at Lu Chen and said, "Although I don't know much about it, I know it's not fun for you to spend so much money on this team. Now that you've gone to Hong Kong to shoot a movie, they must go there to help, right?" Lu Chen was impressed. "That's right. My first movie in Hong Kong is about to start. They are indispensable." Li Mushi nodded. "Actually, everyone has already guessed it. If you don't say anything, they will become restless. No one from the army is willing to eat for free. Since you've given them a chance, then treat them well and don't let them down. They will also repay your hard work and loyalty." Li Mushi said the last few words very seriously. Lu Chen also became serious. "Don't worry, I won't let the people who follow me down." Lu Chen was not just talking nonsense. Since he experienced that strange dream and set foot on the road to the entertainment industry, those who trusted him and followed him had never been disappointed. The Lu family squad was built by Lu Chen at a great cost and effort. He definitely attached more importance to it than Li Mushi. "That's good," Li Mushi said with a smile. "I believe your promise. In fact, there are many people who want to follow you. Wan Yong also wants to make a movie. He has asked me several times." Wan Yong was the coach in charge of fighting in the Wuxia Club. He was 35 years old and had been in the army for 10 years. He once won the championship of the military martial arts competition, so he was deeply valued by Li Mushi. In the Wuxia Club, Wan Yong was undoubtedly the backbone of the club. Li Mushi was willing to let him go, which inevitably surprised Lu Chen. "Are you willing to let him go?" Li Mushi said. "There is no reluctance. The main thing is that he has such an idea. When I asked him to come, I promised him that it would be up to him to leave or stay. Of course, I can't break my promise." Lu Chen pondered and said, "Well, I'll ask him again. It's naturally the best if he can help me." With Wan Yong's strength and prestige in the club, it was undoubtedly the best choice for him to be responsible for training and managing the Lu family squad, which could also save Lu Chen countless troubles. In addition, Wan Yong's skills and image were actually quite suitable for shooting martial arts films and action films. He could be the protagonist, but he was the villain. Thinking of this, Lu Chen couldn't help but smile. He just didn't know what Wan Yong's expression would be when he understood his thoughts. Happy or depressed? Li Mushi was suspicious. "Your smile is very evil. What bad things are you thinking about?" Lu Chen coughed, got up and said, "That's it. I'm going to find Brother Yong now." Li Mushi was unhappy. "What's the hurry? Let's have dinner together tonight." Lu Chen regretted. "I can't tonight. I have an appointment. How about I invite you to dinner tomorrow night?" Li Mushi raised her eyebrows. "With your sister?" Lu Chen was very sorry. "Oh, I remember that I have a dinner tomorrow night. I'll contact you another day." After that, Lu Chen quickly disappeared. This guy, looking at his figure leaving in a hurry, a faint smile appeared on Li Mushi's lips. In the fight club, Lu Chen found Wan Yong. When he told Wan Yong the reason for his visit, Wan Yong agreed without hesitation. Moreover, he seemed extremely happy. Lu Chen quickly said, "Don't be happy too early. I may need you to play the villain in my future movies. Are you willing?" In fact, it didn't matter if Wan Yong was not willing. He could find another special actor to train. It was just that Wan Yong was undoubtedly the most suitable candidate that Lu Chen could find now. In this regard, Wan Yong only hesitated for a few seconds and replied decisively, "No problem. I'll be the villain." Lu Chen couldn't help but be curious. "Brother Yong, why do you want to make a movie with me?" Ordinary people wanted to make movies for nothing more than to be famous, but Lu Chen felt that Wan Yong didn't seem like the kind of person who liked to be famous. Wan Yong was a little embarrassed, but he still explained, "I heard that making movies is very profitable. I want to make more money." Wan Yong's salary in the Wuxia Club was not low, but he had already settled in Beijing. His biggest wish was to buy a big house in Beijing so that his family could live comfortably. However, everyone knew the housing prices in Beijing. Although Li Mushi valued Wan Yong very much, there was no reason to give him a house worth millions of yuan for free. Therefore, after knowing that Lu Chen was training a team to make movies, he had an idea. Lu Chen understood and said with a smile, I see. Then believe me, it won't take many years for you to buy a house you like in Beijing. This was the promise that Lu Qin gave him. Chapter 473. The dinner party in the evening was invited by Sister Li at the Regent Hotel in Beijing. She booked a small box, and the people she invited were Lu Qin and Lu Shi, while she brought her son Zhang Juanji. Compared with the last time they met, Zhang Juanji is obviously more mature and sensible. The entertainment industry is a very realistic place, and it is also very good for sharpening people. Although his debut time is very short, the young man has already shown the temperament of a star. As the captain of the Little Tiger Group, Zhang Juanji is now one of the most popular new artists in the circle. He and his other two partners made their debut in Singing China, and they won countless attention as soon as they appeared. The number of fans in the Waves blog has been rising, and he has become an idol in the hearts of many boys and girls. Most importantly, Zhang Juanji did not become famous overnight. When he played the role of young Yin Juanxi in Autumn in My Heart, he accumulated a lot of popularity, and with the help of the Little Tiger Group, he completed a gorgeous turn. A song, Butterflies Fly, tailor-made by Lu Qin for the Little Tiger Group, has now gained a high degree of popularity, especially in primary and secondary schools all over the country, and has become a daily radio track. The Bionics, MSN and today's Little Tiger Group, Lu Qin really seems to have a magic that makes people succeed easily, so the nickname Golden Hand circulated in the circle will spread to Hong Kong. Seeing Lu Qin, Zhang Juanji seemed very happy. He called him teacher and served tea and water, respectful and polite. Lu Qin said with a smile, "You don't have to be so polite. It must be hard to participate in the talent competition, right?" Shortly after the end of Beijing Television's 2016 Singing China, the Little Tiger Group stood out in the highly anticipated live singing talent competition and won the third place. Although they lost to two powerful opponents in the final, the performance of the three teenagers was remarkable, and they could be said to be glorious in defeat. Lu Qin also watched the live broadcast at that time. Zhang Juanji sat down and said, "Fortunately, it's not very hard. Mom has been with me all the time. She works the hardest." Lu Shi said, "Then you must be filial to your mother in the future." Zhang Juanji nodded, "I will, Sister Lu Shi." Sister Li looked at her handsome and obedient son, her eyes filled with pride and love. What she was most proud of was not the many years she had spent in the industry to establish her own business, nor the wealth and status she had today, but the fact that she had raised Zhang Juanji. For her son, Sister Li was undoubtedly willing to give up everything. This time Sister Li invited Lu Qin and Lu Shi over. The first thing they talked about was the affairs of Qin Fei Charity Foundation. The Qin Fei Charity Foundation was established this year by Lu Qin and Qin Feier. The purpose of the foundation was to protect leukemia patients from poor families so that they could receive help and treatment. Since the foundation was launched more than half a year ago, hundreds of leukemia patients had been rescued, and Lu Qin and Qin Feier had won widespread social reputation. Up until now, the foundation was operating well, and the funds were all under effective supervision. As the chairman of the foundation, Sister Li's contributions could not go unnoticed. "I've decided to sell the majority of my shares in the agency," Sister Li said. "In the future, focus on managing the foundation and Juanji's affairs. I don't want to care about anything else." Lu Qin and Lu Shi were suddenly shocked. The Rainbow Agency, founded by Sister Li, was a veteran agency in the capital. There had been many popular stars under it. Although its status in the industry was not comparable to the top big shots, it could still be ranked among the top. This agency was also the culmination of her life's efforts. It had been maintained conscientiously for 20 years. It had a good relationship and credibility. Even competitors admired it. Now that Sister Li actually said that she wanted to sell the Rainbow Agency, how could Lu Qin and Lu Shi not be surprised? Lu Qin quickly said, "Sister Li actually?" Sister Li interrupted him with a smile, "You don't have to persuade me. In fact, I've been very tired these years. I've long wanted to let go and enjoy life. Now, being in charge of the charity foundation is the most suitable for me. I don't have to work so hard and I won't be idle and bored. Also, doing good deeds gives me a sense of accomplishment. As for money, I've already earned enough. No matter how much I have, it's just a number. Besides, I have Juanji." Lu Qin and Lu Shi looked at each other. Both of them could see that this time, Sister Li had really made up her mind. It was the result of careful consideration. Lu Qin said sincerely, "It's my luck to know Sister Li." Sister Li smiled embarrassedly, "What are you talking about? It's my luck to know you and Fei." Lu Shi smiled and said, "We're all very lucky. Then let's have a toast." Cheers. Everyone raised their glasses together. The small private room was filled with a warm and beautiful atmosphere. Tap, tap. At this time, someone knocked on the door of the private room. The next moment, the hotel waiter opened the door and a middle-aged man walked in. His gaze quickly swept around the private room. His gaze first stopped on Lu Qin, then he nodded and fixed on Sister Li. A warm smile appeared on his face. "I heard from my friend that you're also having dinner here tonight, so I came over to take a look. I'm not disturbing you, am I?" This middle-aged man was tall and slender. He had an elegant demeanor and was undoubtedly a very handsome man when he was young. Now that time had left its mark on his face, he didn't look old at all. Instead, he had a mature temperament. He spoke well and was very confident. A man like this would definitely be very popular with women. He would always be successful in the field of love. However, when he saw this person, Zhang Juanji's face immediately darkened. He turned his head and picked up some food with his chopsticks, stuffed it into his mouth and chewed fiercely. Sister Li was very surprised. She immediately stood up and said with a smile, "It's not a disturbance. Speaking of which, it's been a long time." She tugged at her son. "Juanji, you can't be so rude." Zhang Juanji reluctantly put down his chopsticks and stood up. Reluctantly he greeted, "Dad." As he said that, his eyes drifted to the corner. This middle-aged man was Sister Li's ex-husband and Zhang Juanji's biological father, Zhang Xiaoqiu. Zhang Xiaoqiu took 2 steps forward and said with a smile, "Juanji has grown up. I've watched the competition of Singing China. Your performance is so good. I think the champion should belong to you." He tried very hard to praise his son, but all he got was indifference and disregard. This made Zhang Xiaoqiu a little embarrassed and had to change the subject. "This is teacher Lu Qin, right?" Lu Qin said with a smile, "Hello, Mr. Zhang." Lu Qin didn't expect that he would see Qin Shimi, who is famous in the circle, here today. Chapter 474. Sister Li's real name was Li Jinjin, a rather rustic name, and she was indeed from the countryside. Sister Li was born in poverty. When she was a teenager, she came to Beijing from the countryside to make a living after graduating from junior high school. Like most Beijing drifters, she worked as a waitress in a restaurant, swept the streets, sold insurance and distributed flyers. However, she was smarter and had a higher EQ than most Beijing drifters. She seized the opportunity to squeeze into the entertainment industry, starting from a small assistant, and finally successfully established the famous Rainbow Agency in the industry. Sister Li's life story could be adapted into an inspirational TV series. However, she was most often mentioned by people in the industry, her marriage that lasted for 5 years. Sister Li's ex-husband, Zhang Xiaoqiu, was a small artist who had debuted for several years, but never became popular. Although he was very handsome, his luck had always been very poor. He had acted in a few films, but all of them were small roles. He had also released albums, but they were a mess of losses. He never got the appreciation of Bull. At a cocktail party, Zhang Xiaoqiu met Li Jinjin, who was working hard to develop her career, so he enthusiastically pursued Sister Li. At that time, people in the industry, including Li Jinjin's friends, didn't think Zhang Xiaoqiu had an ulterior motive. They thought that the two of them had a big difference in appearance, and Zhang Xiaoqiu was younger than Sister Li. However, Sister Li accepted Zhang Xiaoqiu's pursuit. After half a year, the two of them got married, and the following year, Zhang Juanji was born. While managing her agency, Sister Li did her best to support her husband's career. Zhang Xiaoqiu's path to stardom changed. He stood out in a TV series and became a hot star. After becoming famous, Zhang Xiaoqiu changed. He was not at home for many years and there were many rumors about him. The marriage between the two lasted for a few years, and Zhang Xiaoqiu, who felt that he had grown up, asked for a divorce. Sister Li readily agreed. Her only condition was the custody of her son. Later, when people talked about this matter, they all felt that it was unfair for Sister Li, saying that Zhang Xiaoqiu was an ingrate. However, Sister Li never said anything bad about her ex-husband on any occasion. Instead, she said a lot of good things about him. She thought that it was enough to have a very good memory of her life. Such tolerance and open-mindedness won Sister Li the respect of many people, but it also made everyone despise Zhang Xiaoqiu even more. After the divorce, Zhang Xiaoqiu quickly married a young wife who used to be a model. A few years later they divorced again. In the beginning his career was very smooth. He received a lot of publicity and endorsements and he made a lot of money. However, good times didn't last long. With the changes in the market, Zhang Xiaoqiu gradually became outdated. Especially in recent years, he had fallen to a D or D-list position. He still had some fame, but he could not compete with the currently popular Little Fresh Meats. His acting and singing skills could not compete with many rivals, so his position in the industry was awkward. Most importantly, even if Sister Lee was very tolerant and never used her connections in the industry to suppress him, there were still many people who didn't like him. Never forget a friend from the poor and never give a wife from the poor. This was a virtue that the Chinese had abided by for thousands of years. Even if it was out of time for the current entertainment industry, not many people would like an ungrateful person like Zhang Xiaoqiu. Lu Qin didn't like it either. He put on a fake smile. Hello, hello. Zhang Xiaoqiu was very thick-skinned. He smiled and extended his hand to Lu Qin. Nice to meet you. Lu Qin shook his hand lightly. Sister Lee frowned and asked, what else do you want? Zhang Xiaoqiu was stunned. In his memory, his ex-wife was very obedient and gentle to him. Even after the divorce, she still took care of his face. Whenever they met again, she would be amiable and never fell out with him. Now, Sister Lee was obviously dissatisfied with him, which made him feel very uncomfortable. After all, Zhang Xiaoqiu was not an ordinary person. He quickly suppressed the surprise in his heart and said with a smile, it's nothing special. I just happened to run into you in Juanji. Listening to him, Sister Lee's face softened a lot, as if she was recalling the good times of the past. She looked at Zhang Xiaoqiu and asked softly, Xiaoqiu, today Lu Qin and Lu Xi are here. In front of our son, I'm not afraid of being embarrassed. I just want to ask you, during the years when we were husband and wife, did you ever love me? Zhang Xiaoqiu's face froze. He hesitated for a moment but still nodded and said, yes. Slap. A resounding slap landed on his face, causing him to be stunned. Sister Lee withdrew her hand and said, liar. Zhang Xiaoqiu's face turned red. The great sense of humiliation made the veins on his forehead bulge. He impulsively raised his hand to fight back. However, a strong hand locked his wrist like an iron clamp, making him unable to move. It was Lu Qin who had hit him. Lu Qin said coldly, Mr. Zhang, you are not welcome here. He swung his hand and Zhang Xiaoqiu couldn't help but take 2 steps back, almost hitting the door. At this time, Zhang Xiaoqiu finally calmed down a little. He realized that he would be humiliated if he continued to stay, so he turned around and left in a very embarrassed manner. Sister Lee let out a long sigh of relief and said to Lu Xi with a wry smile, I'm sorry for making you laugh. Lu Xi shook her head and said, well done. She wasn't a fool. How could she not see that Zhang Xiaoqiu's visit was strange? Most likely he had an ulterior motive. Moreover, this guy looked refined, but his words and actions always revealed a sense of performance. In other words, he was a hypocrite. There was no doubt that Sister Lee had already seen through his true colors. Maybe she had been blinded by love, but now she had woken up. Kindness was not cowardice and tolerance was not forbearance. The slap was good. As a woman, Lu Xi understood and supported Sister Lee. Sister Lee said to her son apologetically, Juanji, I shouldn't have. Zhang Juanji directly interrupted her. Mom, I think Sister Lu Xi is right. Sister Lee nodded, opened her arms and gently held her son in her arms. Her eyes were filled with tears. On November 18, Lu Qin led the newly formed team, a total of 15 people, to Xiangjiang. On the same day, The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer was released in Xinhua Publishing House in the capital. 1,000 hardcover editions and 2,000 paperback editions were all sold out on the first day. The printing plant of Shanghai Publishing House worked at full speed. The finished products were supplied to the local market in the capital, and they were continuously sent to all over the country. From the internet to the real world, The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer entered a larger and more suitable world. It was like a greenhorn swordsman who came to the real world. The sword rose waves. Chapter 475. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon of November 18, Lu Qin and his team arrived at Hong Kong International Airport. Just like the first time he came to Hong Kong, Lu Qin was very low-key. He didn't explain his schedule on his blog, and only a few people in the studio knew his whereabouts. However, what Lu Qin didn't expect was that as soon as he walked out of the passenger passage, more than a dozen reporters holding cameras and microphones suddenly rushed out of the crowd outside and surrounded him in an instant. Mr. Lu Qin, can I interview you? Lu Qin, what's your relationship with Lu Gangxing, Lu Tianwang? Mr. Lu Qin, what do you think of Qin Yuanqin's evaluation of your music work? Mr. Lu Qin, some people say that you came to Hong Kong to make a movie to steal the opportunity of the same industry in Hong Kong. What's your opinion on this? The flashlights flashed frequently, and the microphones tied with different media logos rushed to be in front of him. The surrounding passengers all cast curious or surprised gazes. There were also questions and questions that came at him like a storm. Lu Chen was a little confused for a moment. What was going on? When could he enjoy the treatment of a popular star in Hong Kong? This was a little unscientific. However, Lu Chen was not an ordinary person after all. In the face of a sudden unexpected situation, he could still maintain his calm. He quietly reached out to block the microphones that were about to touch his face and said, "Please make way, this is a public passage, thank you." And behind Lu Chen there was a whole team of people. This team of people was brought back from the capital by Lu Chen. They were 10 men and 2 women, all very young, all of whom had just been discharged from the army. They were at the age of young and vigorous and had received professional training. So when they saw that Lu Chen was surrounded, they quickly stepped forward and blocked the paparazzi at the first possible moment, creating a safe isolation zone for Lu Chen, allowing him to quickly escape from the awkward situation. The paparazzi did not expect Lu Chen to have so many guards around him. How could they be a match for these elites? The pressure that they had formed to force Lu Chen to abdicate collapsed in an instant, and a reporter fell to the ground in a sorry state. The airport security personnel arrived at the scene in time and stopped the paparazzi who were trying to pester her. Therefore, Lu Chen successfully escaped and sat in the commercial car waiting outside. There were many people returning to Hong Kong this time, so the studio arranged to hire a medium-sized bus. The person in charge of picking them up was Lu Chen's assistant in Hong Kong, Li Zhen. Li Zhen saw the chaotic scene just now. She said embarrassedly, "Young Master Lu, I'm really sorry. I didn't expect there to be so many paparazzi." Lu Chen waved his hand to indicate that he didn't mind. What he was puzzled about was why these paparazzi wanted to surround him. Also, what Chen Yuanshan? Snatching the opportunity of the same industry in Hong Kong? It was simply inexplicable. Li Zhen could explain these. It turned out that the source of the disturbance was the Cantonese song, "The Love of My Life," that he sang in Lan Kwai Fong last time. After this song was posted on the internet, it quickly became popular in Hong Kong and was liked by many young people in Hong Kong. There were even many local singers who imitated and sang it. Even the corresponding song appeared in KYV. Nowadays, Hong Kong's pop music scene was no longer as prosperous as it was in the 1980s and 1990s. Especially in recent years, there were fewer and fewer original Cantonese songs. The market was filled with a large number of cover songs and imitations of songs from Europe, America, Japan and South Korea. The mentality of young singers was becoming more and more impetuous, and people who concentrated on making music were becoming rare. This phenomenon had many similarities with the mainland pop music scene. However, compared to the abundance of domestic talents, Hong Kong's original musicians had withered even more, and there were only a few rising stars. The market environment was bad, and the fans who really loved Cantonese songs were naturally very dissatisfied. On Hong Kong's music forums and blogs, nostalgic songs and criticism of the phenomenon were everywhere. So now that they suddenly heard such an outstanding work that could be called a classic, many fans and even people in the circle were surprised. It was completely reasonable for it to become popular quickly. But for Hong Kong's local musicians, it was a little embarrassing. Because Lu Chen, who wrote and sang this song, not only came from the mainland, but he was also not from Guangdong. Moreover, there were 2 people who made Lu Chen hate. One of them was the famous comment ID 3 bowls of wine, in the pop music, and film and TV talk section of Hong Kong's BBS. In the original video post of The Love of My Life, he ridiculed Hong Kong's local musicians and inevitably touched the fragile hearts of some Hong Kong people. The other was the famous Hong Kong blogger, Madman of the South Sea. His blog post about The Love of My Life really pushed Lu Chen to the forefront of the storm. Lu Chen knew about this matter and specially wrote a blog post to respond to it. As a result, he won Lu Tianwang's praise. He thought the situation would calm down and return to the capital a few days later. However, the development of things was far beyond his expectations. The war caused by Madman of the South Sea did not completely extinguish. Instead, it spread more and more. Many people in the pop music scene were involved, and it became very popular on the internet. A few days ago, the famous columnist and music and film critic Chen Yuanshan published an article in the column of Harbor City Daily. He thought that Hong Kong's musicians did not need to belittle themselves. A Cantonese work by Lu Chen could not prove anything. The Love of My Life was also not a classic that deserved to be bragged about. Moreover, there were suspicions of deliberate hype in the existence of the internet. Harbor City Daily was one of the Chinese newspapers with the largest circulation in Hong Kong. Chen Yuanshan's article caused a lot of response and also added firewood to the debate on the internet. At this time, Lu Qin, who was not famous in Hong Kong, was really popular, and his past experience was quickly dug out by people, including the matter that he came to Hong Kong to shoot a movie. This inevitably touched the hearts of people in another circle, so there were rumors that people from the mainland used the support policy of the Hong Kong government to rob the opportunities of the local people, and called for the modification of the policy. Because of the preparation for A Chinese Ghost Story, the work in Hong Kong studio was very busy, and Li Zhen was no exception, so the information she knew was limited. That was all she knew. She said apologetically, "Young Master Lu, I'm really sorry. I should have reported these things to you earlier." Lu Chen finally understood the cause and effect. He couldn't help laughing. "You don't want to farm just because you hear Lala's cry? We do our own things and don't need to pay too much attention to these things." His foundation was in China, and Hong Kong was just a platform for him to enter the film industry. It would be too stupid to get involved in gossip disputes, which involved energy and wasted time. And how could a sparrow know the ambition of a swan? Chapter 476. Compared to Lu Chen's indifference, Li Zhen was a lot more nervous. During the period when Lu Chen left Hong Kong and returned to Beijing, under the leadership of Chen Wenxiang, the studio cooperated with Jiayang Pictures to prepare for the shooting of A Chinese Ghost Story with Qianyang Pictures. Everyone was so busy and she was no exception. Because of this, when there was a storm against Lu Chen on the internet, Li Zhen did not send the news back to Beijing immediately. It was also because of her negligence. She thought that this matter would be over soon. This was the norm in Hong Kong's entertainment circle. Unless someone pushed it hard, the media's focus would change very quickly. There were so many gossip news every day. Now that she thought about it, it was a serious matter, so she had to remind Lu Chen, this Chen Yuanshan is not an ordinary person. He didn't even give face to Lu Tianwang. He wrote an article to scold people. Lu Chen said with a smile, "If he is strong, let him be strong." Li Zhen was a little confused. Although she didn't quite understand, it sounded very powerful. Lu Chen smiled and said, "It's nothing. Let's talk about it when we get back." A Chinese Ghost Story was about to start shooting. There were a lot of things to be done. Lu Chen didn't have the time and energy to quarrel with others. No matter how sharp Chen Yuanshan was, what could he do if he ignored him? Those paparazzi and entertainment media must be eager to see the world in chaos. They couldn't wait for Lu Chen and Chen Yuanshan to fight. Lu Chen was not a fool. How could he fall for such a trap? After returning to Hong Kong studio, Lu Chen didn't see Chen Wenxiang and Wan Xiaoquan until evening. "You've worked hard." Lu Chen had always been polite to the two important members who had worked hard and made great contributions. Chen Wenxiang shook his head and said, "It's my duty." Although his words were modest, there was still a hint of pride in his eyes. Of course, Chen Wenxiang had a reason to be proud. With his full support and the close cooperation between the studio and Jiayang Pictures, the production team of A Chinese Ghost Story was basically completed. The funds, staff and venue were all in place and they could start filming at any time. In this process, Chen Wenxiang could be said to have done all he could, running around cautiously. In particular, he did a lot of work and used a lot of connections to coordinate with the Lion Rock Film City. As the director of a film studio, Chen Wenxiang's efforts were impeccable. When Lu Chen was in Beijing, he kept in touch with Chen Wenxiang, so he knew the situation like the back of his hand. Wan Xiaoquan agreed. Old Chen really had it hard. I learned a lot from following him around. He came to Hong Kong more or less to be banished, which was the result of his helpless choice. However, ever since he came into contact with the local circle of Xiangjiang, Wan Xiaoquan realized that it was not a bad choice to come here. The movie market here was promising, and it was suitable for him to display his abilities again. Chen Wenxiang laughed and said, "Director Wan is joking with me again. This is all I can do. It's still up to you to film." The two had been partners for a period of time and their relationship was quite good. Seeing such a scene, Lu Chen was completely relieved. In the evening, Lu Chen acted as the host and booked a big box in a nearby restaurant. He invited the new members of the studio who had just arrived in Hong Kong and the original team to a banquet, which could be regarded as a meeting between the new and the old. During the banquet, Lu Chen introduced Wan Yong and the others to Chen Wenxiang and Wan Xiaoquan. "They are a martial arts stunt team signed by our studio. To the public they are called the Lu Family Squad." Lu Chen explained in this way, simply using the banner of Lu Family Squad. In the Xiangjiang film and television industry, there were many martial arts masters who worked part-time as stunt actors. They had good basic skills and were also very hardworking. They often acted as stunt doubles for star actors to complete some dangerous actions and fight scenes. Low income and obscurity were the norm for these people. Chen Wenxiang was inevitably surprised that Lu Chen did not recruit in Hong Kong, but recruited such a young team from the capital, because the cost of such an approach was undoubtedly high. The price of hiring a stunt martial artist was not expensive, at least it was much cheaper and less troublesome than raising a group of people. Of course, Chen Wenxiang would not choose to spoil the mood at this time. He was polite to Wan Yong and the others. However, Chen Wenxiang's disapproval was still felt by Lu Chen. He could more or less guess Chen Wenxiang's thoughts, but now was not the time to explain. Lu Chen said, "Uncle Chang, I'll have to trouble you to handle their work visas and residence permits tomorrow." Mainlanders who wanted to work and live in the three major special zones of Taiwan, Hong Kong and Macau needed to apply for the corresponding documents, otherwise there would be great trouble in life. Chen Wenxiang patted his chest and said, "No problem, leave it to me." Lu Chen was very relieved that he could handle it. He picked up his glass and made a toast to express his gratitude. After 3 rounds of drinking, everyone began to talk. Chen Wenxiang told Lu Chen a lot of recent things in the circle, and they talked about the controversy caused by Lu Chen on the internet. There was also Qin Yuanchen. Qin Yuanchen is one of the representatives of Hong Kong, Chen Wenxiang said. The characteristic of Hong Kong members is that they must put the interests of Hong Kong people first in everything, and reject foreign competition and immigrants. It is said that he intends to run for parliament next year. I suspect that it is very likely that he is using you as a target in this matter. The rumors on the internet are probably deliberately released by someone, so you can't take it lightly. Don't underestimate their incitement. Previously, Li Zhen told Lu Chen that Qin Yuanchen was very sharp, but Lu Chen did not pay much attention to it. Now that Chen Wenxiang revealed the deep inside story to him, he had to pay attention to it. In many cases, even if you don't look for trouble, trouble will come to you. Ignoring and avoiding it is not a solution. Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "Then find a chance to clarify it." "I was almost blocked by reporters at the airport in the afternoon." He was still very puzzled. How did these reporters know his flight number? Chen Wenxiang said with a smile, "These paparazzi have very good noses, and they have insiders in all the major airlines. They will know in advance when stars enter and leave the port. In the future you'd better take the VIP passage." Lu Chen said that he had learned his lesson. This trick was very sophisticated. Chen Wenxiang continued, "If you want to clarify the truth, then don't look for these paparazzi. They specialize in writing nonsense. It's better to be on TV programs." He said to Li Zhen, "Zhen, pay attention to which TV stations will send invitations these days." Li Zhen nodded. "Okay." As a result, Chen Wenxiang was right. On the second day after Lu Chen returned to Hong Kong, 3 TV stations sent invitations. Chapter 477. Xiangjiang's land area was more than 1,000 square kilometers, with a population of more than 10 million, and its population density was among the highest in the world. This international metropolis was once known as the Hollywood of the East, and its entertainment industry was extremely developed. Although there were signs of decline since the beginning of the new century, it was still one of the important industries of Xiangjiang. As the most important part of the entertainment media, Xiangjiang had a considerable number of television stations, mainly including 2 major wireless stations and more than a dozen small and medium-sized cable stations. Among them, Xiangjiang Satellite Television, Xiangjiang Satellite TV, and Asia Television ATV, were the 2 hegemons in the industry, jointly occupying more than 70% of the market share. Pearl TV, Hong Kong Cable TV, Kowloon TV and other cable TV stations divided up the remaining 30%. The competition between them was very fierce, creating the prosperity of Xiangjiang's television media. The invitations to Lu Chen Studio were from ATV, Pearl TV and Hong Kong Cable TV. Without any consideration, Lu Chen accepted ATV's program invitation. Asia Television was the first television station in Xiangjiang, and also the first Chinese television station in the world. It had a long history and a glorious past. Although its current strength and scale were slightly inferior to the rising star Xiangjiang Satellite TV, ATV's background was still very strong, and it had a great influence in Xiangjiang and even in Southeast Asia. ATV had 12 channels, and the program that invited Lu Chen was the variety channel's Entertainment Three People Talk. This program had been on the air for more than 10 years. It was hosted by ATV's famous host, Shin Shuling. Every episode would invite a star in the entertainment industry and a special guest to interview the current entertainment hot topics. Its average ratings had always been in the top 3 among similar programs. The reason why Entertainment Three People Talk invited Lu Chen was undoubtedly because of the dispute he had caused on Hong Kong's internet. It was about Xiangjiang's pop music and Xiangjiang's movies. Lu Chen still attached great importance to ATV's program invitation. After getting the program script, he took some time to study it and also looked through a lot of previous videos of Entertainment Three People Talk. Assistant Li Zhen was very active in advising Lu Chen, and even recommended a famous stylist to him. Her excitement was not without reason. Lu Chen had only been in Xiangjiang for a few days, but his name had already spread in Xiangjiang's entertainment industry and even caused quite a stir. A song stirred up the entertainment industry and attracted the attention of ATV. As Lu Chen's assistant, Li Zhen felt honored. This was the famous ATV. Moreover, Li Zhen was a fan of ATV host Shin Shuling. Of course, she fervently hoped that Lu Chen would have a wonderful and outstanding performance on Three People in Entertainment. The program Three People in Entertainment was recorded in advance, so after receiving the program invitation, the studio communicated with ATV, and the official recording time was set for the afternoon of the 21st. On the same day, Lu Chen arrived at ATV's headquarters on time with his 2 assistants. The headquarters of ATV is also located in the Westport Business Center of Xiangpun. It is only a few hundred meters away from the Rongjin building where Lu Chen's studio is located, but the former is a building that has been built for 30 years. This 39-story light gray building was not eye-catching among the various modern and luxurious high-rise buildings around it. Even the structure and appearance looked outdated, but the words Asia Television and the logo inlaid on the outer wall shone brightly under the sunlight, proudly displaying its glory. Once upon a time, countless artists in Xiangjiang were proud to walk into this building. At the entrance of the ATV building, Lu Chen first saw Shin Shuling's assistant who came to greet them. After completing the registration, the group took the elevator to the 27th floor, the studio of the ATV Variety Channel. Shin Shuling and another guest were already waiting there. Shin Shuling was in her 40s, but because she took good care of herself, she looked like a person in her 30s. Her appearance was not very beautiful, but she was dignified, generous, and graceful. Especially when she smiled, it gave people a feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze, giving people a good impression. "Hello Lu Chen, welcome to ATV." She smiled and shook hands with Lu Chen and said half-jokingly, "I'm your fan." A simple sentence instantly narrowed the distance between the two of them. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Then I'll give you a limited edition solo album. I only ask Sister Shin to take care of me in the program." Although Shin Shuling looked very amiable, her hosting style was quite sharp. Even in the face of a big star, she dared to ask sensitive questions. In fact, most of the hosts in Xiangjiang were like this. Because Xiangjiang's TV stations were all private, in order to pursue the effect of the program, the requirements for the host were naturally very high. When the audience watched variety shows, they liked content with gimmicks, conflicts, and strong topics. If the host did not have unique characteristics, it would be easy to be abandoned. The most important thing was that Xiangjiang's policies and regulations were different from those in the mainland, so the standards for TV programs were different. Lu Chen had previously watched a lot of previous videos of Three People in Entertainment Talk. Of course, he had some understanding of Shin Shuling's hosting personality, so although it was a joke, it was also serious. Shin Shuling was stunned at first, then smiled and said, "Okay, I will definitely take care of you." She introduced another guest to Lu Chen. Three People in Entertainment Talk was, of course, a conversation between three people. As the first guest, Lu Chen was definitely the protagonist, but the existence of this guest was not dispensable. His views were undoubtedly an important part of the program. This guest was called Zhuang Dong. He was a writer, a critic, a reporter, and so on. He was a celebrity in the literary and entertainment circles. He had published many books and had more than 500,000 fans on Hong Kong blogs. Zhuang Dong was thin and a little tanned. He was wearing a suit and glasses. After the introduction, he shook hands with Lu Chen and said, "Hello, nice to meet you." Lu Chen smiled and said, "Hello, Mr. Zhuang." Zhuang Dong's eyes were quite sharp. He stared at Lu Chen and asked, "Mr. Lu, I want to ask, what is the main purpose of your development in Xiangjiang? Or what is your goal?" Lu Chen was stunned. The program had not even started recording, and this person had already started to ask aggressive questions? He looked quite unfriendly. He thought for a moment and replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "I came to Xiangjiang to make friends." This answer was undoubtedly completely out of Zhuang Dong's expectation. Maybe he wanted to catch Lu Chen off guard, but he was dumbfounded by Lu Chen's response. Shen Shuling, who was standing on the side, had a flash of smile in her eyes. She tried to smooth things over and said, "You too, if you have anything to say, let's talk on the program." She had a feeling that today's episode of Three People in Entertainment Talk would be quite interesting. At least the guest was not wrong. Chapter 478. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening, when all the houses in Hong Kong were brightly lit. Kong nimbly jumped out of the minibus that had just stopped at the platform, rushed forward a few steps, jumped to the sidewalk and then walked quickly to his home. Kong had just graduated from college this year. At present he was working in a trading company, doing the import and export of digital equipment. He did not go to a famous university and had no energy for work, so now he was mainly learning to be an assistant. The work was very hard. He had to go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and go home at 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. The salary was very low and he had to do all kinds of chores. It was very undignified to be ordered around by the boss. But Kong was a very optimistic boy. He worked very hard and studied very hard. He looked forward to the day when he could open a small company and buy a big house for his family. His dream was a villa. Kang's home was in Dawai Sha Tin. A 50-square-meter house accommodated 3 generations of 6 people. The so-called HOS referred to the low-cost housing built by the Hong Kong government in the 1970s under the Home Ownership Plan, which was equivalent to the affordable housing in the mainland. The price was 30% to 40% lower than that of similar commercial housing. It was mainly sold to public housing tenants and qualified low- and middle-income residents. This 50-square-meter HOS was bought by Kang's grandparents with their life savings. After returning home, Kong opened the door with the key. His mother, who was cleaning in the kitchen, heard the noise and poked her head out. She asked, "Kong, have you had dinner?" Kong nodded and said, "Yes, I have. I'm going to my room." His mother looked at his back as he hurried into the room and shook her head. Although the house was very small, in order to meet the living needs of the family, it was still divided into 3 rooms, one for his grandparents, one for his parents, and one for him and his sister. There was no other way. Although Kong was already an adult and his sister was in high school, this HOS was very good compared with many families who lived in public housing or even cage houses. In the future, when his sister got married, he could marry a wife and live with her. Dreams were beautiful, but the real life had to go on. His sister was sitting at the desk copying homework. Kong did not disturb her. He sat on his bed and turned on the small LCD TV hanging on the wall. Kong bought the TV with his first salary so that he wouldn't have to fight with his family over the TV. He liked movies and TV dramas. He also liked pop music and surfing the internet. Now that the computer was occupied by his sister, Kong had no other choice but to watch TV. Most importantly, there were programs that he wanted to watch at night. Beep. Just as he turned on the TV with the remote control, the phone in his pocket suddenly rang twice. Kong took out his phone and looked at it. It was a message from Xiaowei, asking if he had arrived home. Kong quickly replied, "I'm home. I just turned on the TV." Xiaowei replied very quickly, "ATV Variety Channel, 8:30 p.m., Entertainment 3 People Talk." Kong couldn't help but smile. His fingers moved quickly. Understood. Xiaowei was a girl he was pursuing. She was a clerk in another company. Although she was not very beautiful, she could be considered delicate and charming. She had no lack of pursuers. Kong knew that his family was ordinary and his conditions were ordinary. He didn't really expect to win her favor. However, by chance, Kong discovered a little secret of Xiaowei, and then the two unexpectedly started dating. Although it was far from the level of boyfriend and girlfriend, it was enough to become a happy thing in Kang's life. Xiaowei liked music and singing very much. She often went to Lan Kwai Fong Bar with her friends to listen to songs. Her common ID on the internet was Viviani. Isn't it a nice name? Xiaowei recently fell in love with a young artist from the mainland, and tonight, the artist would appear on the ATV Variety Channel's Entertainment 3 People Talk program. Not only did she want to watch it herself, but she also wanted her friends to watch it together. Kong was no exception. He exchanged text messages with Xiaowei. The long advertisement before the start of the program had no effect on Kong. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. Entertainment 3 People Talk started on time at 8:30 p.m. First, the familiar opening music and the familiar program logo were played. The camera quickly turned to the host. Kang was no stranger to the ATV variety channel's Entertainment 3 People Talk, especially the host, Shin Shuling. When he was still in primary school, she was already active on the screen and looked very kind. Welcome to Entertainment 3 People Talk. The dignified and beautiful Shin Shuling smiled at the camera, and the two guests sat on her left and right. Who is this? He's so handsome. Kang couldn't help but turn his head at the sudden sound. He saw his sister standing beside him, staring at the TV screen with glowing eyes. Kang knew who she was asking about and explained, Lu Qin, an artist from the mainland. He sings very well. Have you heard the song, The Love of My Life? He looked at Lu Qin on the screen. Although he was a little unhappy, he had to admit that Lu Qin was really handsome. There were many handsome young artists in Hong Kong, but this artist from the mainland had a special temperament. Kang couldn't tell, but he felt that he was different from other stars. Is this song sung by him? His sister suddenly understood and sat beside him to watch the program together. High school was very busy. If she wanted to go to a good university, she had to work hard. Kang's sister usually didn't have much time to play or watch TV or surf the internet, because her goal was to surpass her brother. But she had also heard the song, The Love of My Life. First of all, let's welcome Lu Qin. He comes from the mainland and is currently shooting a movie in Hong Kong. He is also shooting a movie? His sister's surprise made Kang even more unhappy. If he had known this, he would not have turned on the TV. But in this way, he and Xiaowei would lose an important topic, and maybe they would be put into another book by the other party. The program continued. No one knew if it was specially arranged by the TV station. At the beginning of the program, another guest, Zhuang Dong, attacked Lu Qin and asked several sharp questions, mainly about the pop music of Hong Kong. His sister was indignant. Why is he like this? If he has the ability, he should write a good song. In the face of Zhuang Dong's attack, Lu Qin dealt with it calmly and confidently. Lu Qin praised the great contribution of Hong Kong pop music to the Chinese music world, and also pointed out the common problems faced by pop music at present. He hoped that more talented musicians could emerge in the music world and reproduce the glory of Chinese music together. The watertight answer made Zhuang Dong's attack in vain. Perhaps he realized that this problem was not difficult for Lu Qin, so he quickly changed the topic to Hong Kong movies and the film support policies of the Hong Kong government. Chapter 479. Before I invited you to this show, I noticed that there were a lot of rumors on the internet. Shin Shuling's pair of phoenix eyes stared at Lu Qin without blinking. Her voice was so pleasant from beginning to end, but the taste in her words was not necessarily gentle and harmless. Someone said on a blog that the new support policy issued by the Hong Kong government could bring back the glory of the Hong Kong film industry. But first of all, it has attracted the wolves, which will undoubtedly have an impact on the Hong Kong film industry and further intensify the fierce competition. He suggested that the Hong Kong government should adjust the policy and impose restrictions on foreign actors. So, Lu Qin, do you think that you are also a member of the wolves? Or do you have any opinion on this? In the show, Shin Shuling was the host and she was also the topic guide. Maybe she didn't take any position, but she interacted with the guests objectively and neutrally. However, this didn't mean that she didn't touch on sensitive topics. On the contrary, she was consciously driving the atmosphere of the conversation and creating conflicts and arguments. This was the first topic that Zhuang Dong brought up. He was undoubtedly a supporter of this sensitive topic. Seeing that Shin Shuling brought the fire of war to Lu Qin, a faint smile appeared on his face as if he was watching a good show. In Zhuang Dong's eyes, Lu Qin was very young, which meant that he lacked enough experience, shrewdness, and adaptability. Moreover, Lu Qin had just come from the mainland, so he must be very unfamiliar with Hong Kong. Shin Shuling's question was very tricky, and it also touched on the sensitive side of Hong Kong people. If Lu Qin's answer was slightly appropriate, then his interview that night would be a failure. In other words, Zhuang Dong would win without a fight, and it would be an easy victory. In fact, it was not good to win too easily. Zhuang Dong even had a little regret. The real victory should be crushing the opponent in a fierce battle. Lu Qin pondered for a moment as if he was thinking. It seemed that this question had really stumped him, which made Zhuang Dong more and more proud. But the audience sitting in front of the TV and watching this show had a different feeling. Kang's sister complained, "Really, how can you ask such an outrageous question? How do you expect people to answer?" She was really infatuated with Lu Chen's handsomeness and instinctively spoke up for Lu Chen. Kong sympathized with Lu Chen. If he had been questioned like this, he would have behaved even worse. In his heart, Kong agreed with the wolves. When he worked in the company, he often heard from his colleagues that the reason why the market was so bad, the prices were so high, and the housing prices were so expensive, were mainly because of the mainland. Mainlanders came to Xiangjiang to shop and buy real estate in Xiangjiang because the mainlanders took over the Xiangjiang company's business. Now, it was the movie industry's turn. What was the Hong Kong government thinking? Why didn't they think more about the locals? As the saying went, don't let the goodies flow to your own fields. His mind was a mess of thoughts, and then he thought of Xiaowei. I wonder if Xiaowei will be very angry? Just then Lu Chen spoke on the TV screen. He looked very serious and said, I think I and my colleagues from the mainland are not wolves. If you want a metaphor, I think I would like to be a catfish. Catfish? Xin Shuling was surprised. Why do you want to be a catfish? She felt that this metaphor was very strange. Lu Chen smiled slightly. His smile was sunny and brilliant, which made Xin Shuling feel a little excited. He said, let me tell you a story first. A long time ago, Norwegians liked to eat sardines, especially fresh sardines. But there were no aerators at that time, and the fishermen had to go out to sea to catch sardines for a long time. The sardines raised in the cabin did not like to move, and they often died on the way back to the port, so they could not be sold at a good price. But people found that many of the sardines caught by a fisherman were still alive, and he could always sell them at a high price. This secret was not revealed until the fisherman died. Lu Chen told the story in detail, and there was suspense. Not only did Xin Shuling listen attentively, even Zhuang Dong was curious. He wanted to see what Lu Chen was up to. Lu Chen continued, it turned out that the fisherman raised a catfish in the cabin. Among the sardines there was an extra fierce creature. They would swim and dodge instinctively, and they maintained their vitality. Finally, many of them survived to the port. After the story was finished, Xin Shuling, Zhuang Dong, and many of the audience in front of the TV faintly understood. This also included the audience at the recording site, and the atmosphere in the studio became very subtle. Lu Chen continued, it can be said that I grew up watching Xiangjiang movies and TV dramas, mainly the Xiangjiang movies of the 1990s. There are many real classics such as Big Lawyer, True Love of the World, Hong Kong Hero, Life and Death Rescue, and so on. Xin Shuling laughed and said, then you must be a fan of Lu Gangxing. Lu Chen also laughed, nodded and said calmly, yes, the wish that I want to realize in Xiangjiang includes meeting my idol, and being able to say a few words to him. Xin Shuling laughed, then your wish will definitely come true. Lu Chen's admiration and respect for Lu Gangxing made the Xiangjiang audience in front of the TV suddenly have a better impression of him. Lu Gangxing could be said to be the symbol and representative of the Xiangjiang people's hard work. His legendary life experience, who knew how many Xiangjiang young people to work hard. His songs and films all had a profound influence in Xiangjiang. Lu Chen said, at that time when Xiangjiang's classic movies and TV dramas were broadcast in the mainland, they could all win very high box office and ratings, especially TV dramas. It was not an exaggeration to say that tens of thousands of people turned out to watch them. But now, how much market does Xiangjiang's movies and TV dramas still have in the mainland? A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and the fierce counterattack was hidden in the implicit words, as far as I know, I'm afraid there is not even 1% left. Xin Shuling was silent. The muscles on Zhuang Dong's face twitched. He wanted to refute but found that he was unable to refute. Because what Lu Chen said was completely right. The once glorious Xiangjiang film and TV had long lost the ability to summon wind and rain in the mainland, and could only fight in their own territory and the traditional market in Southeast Asia. Lu Chen's words ruthlessly revealed the current situation of Xiangjiang's film and TV industry. Combined with the story he told before, anyone with a little bit of intelligence could understand what he wanted to express. Xiangjiang's film and TV industry was like sardines crowded in a narrow cabin, and they would die sooner or later. Unless there was a catfish that stimulated them. Chapter 480. The story of catfish originated from Lu Chen's dream world memory. In the dream world, there was a special term called catfish effect, which meant introducing competition to stimulate the vitality of enterprises or industries. The story itself was actually fabricated, not real. Lu Chen used this fresh story that did not exist in this world to debate. It was undoubtedly very vivid and brilliant. Everyone could understand it and understand his meaning. Most importantly, Hong Kong's film and television industry was in urgent need of a real reform. The last glory of Hong Kong's film and television industry was in the 1990s, and it began to decline after entering the new century. Hong Kong's practitioners clung to the glory of the past and did not want to make progress. They did not realize the great changes in the market with the advent of the internet and were finally abandoned by the market. Now, although Hong Kong's film and television industry was still very developed, its influence was far less than before. What was worse was that the themes of the films and TV series were successful. Plagiarism and imitation were common on the screen, and the content of sh*t and sh*t had not changed for 10 years. Even Hong Kong's audience was beginning to get tired of it. How could they still hold the territory of the mainland and Southeast Asian markets? The future of the industry was in danger, so the Hong Kong government cooperated with the relevant domestic departments to issue support policies to allow mainland film and television companies to invest in Hong Kong and share preferential support. To put it bluntly, it was to stimulate the local practitioners. It was ridiculous that some people in the circle did not reflect on their own problems and blindly rejected foreign competition. In the end, they would die together like sardines. In fact, there were also many problems in the mainland's film and television industry, but the prevalence of big IPs brought prosperity to the market, and the film box office rose year by year. If Hong Kong wanted to regain its glory, it had to control the mainland market again. Regarding this problem, Lu Qin simply said it openly and did not avoid it. The biggest problem of Xiangjiang's film and TV series is the lack of popular IP and fresh creativity. Xiangjiang does not lack talents in the film and TV field, nor does it lack channels and resources, and has accumulated rich experience for decades, but now it has fallen behind the times. Hearing his words, many TV viewers nodded secretly. People in Hong Kong liked watching movies very much. According to statistics, on average, every person in Hong Kong spent more than 300 yuan on movies every year, which was a box office of 3 to 4 billion yuan, not including other expenses in the cinema. However, many people in Hong Kong, especially young people, liked and enthusiastically pursued Hollywood blockbusters, as well as Japanese and Korean movies or TV series. Shen Shuling asked, "Is this the reason why you chose to come to Hong Kong to make a movie?" Lu Qin said that he wanted to be a catfish in the Xiangjiang film and television industry. The most direct way to express it was definitely the new movie he was going to shoot. Otherwise, it would just be empty talk. One of the reasons, Lu Qin nodded without hesitation and said confidently, "This movie of mine will be an innovative and thoughtful work." Needless to say, Lu Qin's personal image was tall, handsome, and full of masculinity. As he continued to achieve achievements and improve his status in the industry, he naturally had a confident temperament that made people believe in him and trust him. His confidence not only affected the people present, but it could also be felt by the audience through the screen. In Ah Kang's room, his sister screamed and hugged her brother's arm tightly. She shook it hard and said, "Lu Qin is so handsome. I hereby announce that from today onwards, I am a fan of Lu Qin." Ah Kang couldn't help rolling his eyes and feeling sour in his heart. Xiaowei liked Lu Qin, and his sister became a fan of Lu Qin. The charm of this mainland artist was too great. Although he had to admit that Lu Qin, who was sitting on the set and talking with confidence at this moment, was very handsome and outstanding. Among the younger generation of Hong Kong artists, there were not many who could be compared with him. Zhuang Dong was very unconvinced and couldn't help but say, "If I remember correctly, this is your first movie?" The implication was that he dared to boast about his first movie. Wasn't he afraid of being cut by the wind? Lu Qin smiled faintly and said, "I debuted last year and my first album sold more than 3 million copies. The first TV series I created and starred in broke 3% of the domestic audience rating and exceeded 30% in South Korea." Zhuang Dong was speechless without the need for a heavy hammer to strike the drum. His first album sold triple platinum, and his first TV series broke 3% of the mainland audience rating. It was also a great success in South Korea. Such dazzling achievements were beyond Lu Gongxing's reach in the first few years of his debut. What qualifications did Zhuang Dong have to think that Lu Qin's first movie would not be good? Lu Qin took the opportunity to advertise his new film, "Welcome to my first film, a Chinese ghost story," at that time. "Please give me more valuable comments." In fact, Lu Qin was quite wronged when he was bombarded on 3 Men in Entertainment this time, because before him, many domestic film and television companies had already gone to Hong Kong to prepare to shoot movies. These film and television companies were far more famous and powerful than the newly established Lu Qin's Hong Kong studio. As a result, it was the latter who was shot down. Although he vigorously fought back against those unfavorable comments on the show, Lu Chen still wanted to get back some money. Shen Shuling couldn't help laughing. Although it was normal for stars to advertise their records or movies on the show, it was rare for Lu Chen to do it so openly. However, this showed his frankness and frankness. Shen Shuling said with a smile, "When your new movie is released, I will definitely support you with a movie ticket." Lu Chen put his palms together to express his gratitude. "Thank you, Sister Shen. Can you take your husband with you?" Shen Shuling laughed heartily. She was really amused. The same laughter sounded in the audience, and the atmosphere in the studio became extraordinarily harmonious, and the original sense of hostility disappeared. At this moment, when 3 Men in Entertainment was broadcast, Shen Shuling was sitting in the director's room and paying attention to the ratings of her latest episode of hosting. She saw her overjoyed look on the monitor, and a smile appeared on her face again. Now in retrospect, there were still many things that could be discovered from Lu Chen, but unfortunately the time was too short. Ring ring, the phone in the director's room suddenly rang, and a staff member immediately picked it up. He said a few words into the microphone, and then stretched out his right hand to Shen Shuling, spreading his 5 fingers. 5%. Even though she had many years of experience in hosting and was used to great storms, Shen Shuling's heart jumped fiercely. The staff member told her through gestures that the ratings of this episode of 3 Men in Entertainment had reached 5%, far exceeding the normal average of about 3%. Absolutely successful. Chapter 481. Xiangjiang was one of the 3 major special administrative regions. Whether it was the area or the resident population, it was far inferior to the capital, but the population density was big, surpassing the latter. The economy was developed, trade was prosperous, and the media was abundant. There were 2 major wireless hegemons in the TV station alone, Xiangjiang Satellite TV and ATV, and many small and medium-sized cable TV stations, so the competition for program content was very fierce. Even a difference of 0.1% in the ratings could cause a difference of several places. Although Xiangjiang Satellite TV and ATV steadily occupied 2 out of 3 parts of the world, and the common market share of the 2 had never been less than 70% in recent years, they had also been strongly challenged by Pearl TV and Hong Kong cable TV. Whether it was program resources or ratings, they had been eroded little by little. There was no need to mention the competition between Xiangjiang Satellite TV and ATV. The grudges between the 2 major TV stations could shoot a long TV series with hundreds of episodes. In terms of ratings, they had long been competing. The veteran ATV had not gained the upper hand in this confrontation between the giants in recent years. There were also many problems within ATV. The competition for resources between the channels was very fierce, and the internal friction was serious. As one of the trump card programs of the Variety Channel, the 3 in Entertainment was also facing a severe test. As a variety talk show broadcast during prime time, the average audience rating of the 3 in Entertainment was around 3%, but this figure was calculated based on the audience rating of 10 years. If it was shortened to the last 3 years, then it would fall to around 2%, sometimes even lower than 2%. This was undoubtedly a dangerous sign. Shen Shuling, who hosted the 3 in Entertainment, was well aware of this. She also tried her best to improve the quality of the content of the program. She did not want to end up being axed in the end. The market was extremely cruel, and ATV was also a charity home for the elderly. A group of newcomers were eyeing her covetously. Shen Shuling looked very impressive on the surface, but in fact she had always been trembling with fear. It was precisely because of this that she boldly went against the opinions of the public and invited the recent hot topic, Lu Chen, on the 3 in Entertainment, to discuss the new film support policies of the Hong Kong government. At that time, the program team, including many people in the station, thought that Lu Chen was a new artist who had just come from the mainland and had no popularity base in Xiangjiang. With his identity and status, he did not meet the requirements of the 3 in Entertainment. They were worried that he would be criticized by the audience and people in the circle. However, it turned out that Shen Shuling's risk was right. Maybe the audience in Xiangjiang was very interested in this handsome star from the mainland, or maybe the competition brought about by the new movie support policy touched the sensitive points of many people. The ratings of the program actually rose steadily, and when it was near the end, it broke through 5%. 5%. This was quite an amazing result, enough to be comparable to those real big-name programs. The last time Entertainment 3 People Talk reached this rating was the result of inviting the heavenly queen of film, television, and song Yen Ni. Not only did Lu Chen on The 3 in not lower the level of the program, but it had of the program of the big stars. The program had also brought the program to of stars. Not only did the program of The 3 in programs of the program of the program of the program of the show, but also brought. Instead Shen Shuling believed that his handsomeness, temperament, and style of conversation would inevitably become a hot topic. The host of the ATV program seemed to see a new star rising in the sky of Xiangjiang. The program was still going on, but it was coming to an end. Shen Shuling said, "Actually, the first time I met Lu Chen was on a Hong Kong blog, and then someone forwarded the video to me. At that time, you were in a bar in Lan Kuaifang, right?" Lu Chen nodded. "Yes, that was the first time I came to Xiangjiang. My friend recommended Lan Kuaifang to me." Shen Shuling said with a smile, "Then you participated in the La Dolce Vita 97 singing competition and sang the song that everyone is familiar with, The Love of My Life. I heard that you wrote this song yourself. Is it for your girlfriend?" Lu Chen nodded. "Yes." The first part of the program was almost a debate session, and there were more disputes and conflicts. Now that it was almost the end, the atmosphere was relaxed, so it was time to talk about gossip. Shen Shuling controlled the rhythm of the conversation very well. Of course, he was also happy to cooperate. The only one who was not happy was probably the other guest, Zhuang Dong. Ever since he was hit by Lu Chen's several consecutive counterattacks, he was basically silent and no longer aggressive. Everyone's eyes were sharp. They had to admit that they lost the debate. If they continued to pester endlessly, they would only make a fool of themselves in front of the public, and become a joke to their opponents. Shen Shuling obviously also noticed Zhuang Dong's predicament, so she changed to a relaxed topic. She turned to face the camera and said with a smile, "Many of our friends in front of the TV may not know, but Mr. Lu Chen's girlfriend is the domestic pop music queen Miss Chen Fei. Moreover, Miss Chen Fei's 2 recent TV series have created miracles both at home and abroad. It must be noted that the screenwriter and male lead of these 2 TV series are both Lu Chen. Then Lu Chen in your first movie, is the female lead still Miss Chen Fei? This time Lu Chen shook his head. "No, the female lead is a new actress from Xiangjiang. In addition to the male lead and the director of A Chinese Ghost Story, most of the other actors are from the same industry in Xiangjiang, including our partners." The new film support policy issued by the Xiangjiang government had restrictions. For example, in the movies submitted for review, local actors in Xiangjiang needed to account for more than 60%. This was a hard rule. However, the main reason why Chen Fei was not chosen for A Chinese Ghost Story was because of the schedule. Shen Shuling said, "Then we will wait and see and look forward to the screening of your movie. In addition, at the end of the program, can you respond to the audience's call and sing The Love of My Life again here?" She added, "I also like this song very much." Lu Chen was pleased. "Thank you. Of course, that's no problem." This was arranged in advance by the program team. It was not a sudden attack on Lu Chen. He had already expected it. Without the official release of the official version of The Love of My Life, only relying on a mobile phone video had almost become Lu Chen's current label. This classic Cantonese song had helped him to integrate into the entertainment industry of Xiangjiang to a large extent. It had an influence among the young people of Xiangjiang and could be considered to have played the greatest role. Therefore, this episode of Entertainment Talk with 3 people ended with Lu Chen playing the piano and singing The Love of My Life. After the program was officially broadcast, it caused a great response both inside and outside the circle of Xiangjiang. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.